Silence came before fear, before the galaxy learned the name Revan, before banners burned across star systems, before war reshaped history. There was only a child too young to understand loss. He did not scream when they took him. There was no memory strong enough to resist, no home old enough to miss. Only the Force moved around him, quiet and unseen, pulling him away from everything familiar before familiarity could exist. The Jedi did not call it theft. They called it salvation. A Force-sensitive child discovered far from the core, far from the safety of Republic worlds, marked by instincts he could not name. The Order arrived without warning, robes instead of armor, calm voices instead of weapons. They saw potential. They saw danger. They did not see a family, because families were not part of the equation. The child was taken to Coruscant, to the highest towers, to halls where echoes outlived memory. He was given food, shelter, training. He was not given his name back. Names carried attachment. Attachment led to fear. Fear led elsewhere. So the past was allowed to fade. The Jedi believed this was mercy. They raised him among hundreds like him, children with shaved heads and quiet eyes, each one separated from a life that would never return. No one spoke of mothers. No one asked about fathers. Those questions dissolved with time. The child learned discipline before language, meditation before laughter, control before curiosity. When he reached for the Force, it answered immediately, not violently, not loudly, and it wrapped around him like something familiar he could not remember learning. Masters noticed. They watched how he listened more than he spoke, how he stared at questions longer than answers, how silence never unsettled him. Silence felt normal. At night, when the temple slept, he would lie awake without knowing why. There were no dreams, only impressions, a feeling of something missing, without shape or image, like a word resting just beyond recall. The Jedi taught him that emptiness was peace, that absence was clarity. He believed them. Years passed gently. No trauma marked his memory. No pain defined his childhood. And yet something hollow remained. Other initiates found comfort in routine, in rules, in belonging. He found only direction without purpose. When instructors spoke of balance, he listened carefully. And when they warned of the dark, he listened harder. Because somewhere deep within him, unformed and unspoken, was a sense that truth had been delayed. Not denied, delayed. The Force flowed through him cleanly, but it did not answer the question he could not ask. Who was he before this place? The Jedi never lied to him. They simply did not tell him everything. And so the child grew, not angry, not broken, not afraid, just incomplete. He did not know loss. He did not know grief. But he knew absence. An absence has weight. It presses quietly, patiently, waiting for the moment when silence demands meaning. The temple did not feel cruel. It felt endless. Stone corridors stretched upward and inward, as if the building was trying to leave the planet behind. The child learned quickly that sound behaved differently here. Footsteps faded faster. Voices softened themselves. Everything was designed to encourage quiet. Silence was not enforced. It was expected. He woke before dawn cycles, guided by bells that never rang loudly. Training began the same way every day, with breathing, with stillness, with control. He was taught how to sit before he was taught how to speak. Meditation circles replaced play. Lessons replaced stories. No one tucked him in at night. No one needed to. Attachment was discouraged early, before it could take shape. The masters believed this prevented pain. They watched him closely as the years passed. He showed no defiance, no fear. He followed instruction perfectly, but something about the way he listened felt different. Other initiates sought approval. He sought understanding. When questions were allowed, his were quiet but heavy. Why does the Force feel closer in silence? Why does it feel distant when ignored? The masters answered carefully. Balance, discipline, patience. Words polished smooth by centuries of use. He accepted them, but they did not settle. During sparring, he never rushed. He waited, not for an opening, but for certainty. That unsettled some instructors. Force exercises revealed the same pattern. He reached gently, yet his presence was impossible to ignore, like a shadow cast without light. At night, when the temple dimmed, the silence changed. It grew heavier. He could feel the Force moving through the stone, through sleeping minds, through memories not his own. He did not know what he was sensing, only that it felt old, older than the Order. Sometimes he thought he heard echoes, not voices, but impressions, regret without images, fear without events. He learned to bury those feelings, because the temple rewarded calm. Calm was safety. The masters praised him often. A promising future, they said. They spoke of knighthood, of responsibility, of service to the Republic. They never spoke of who he had been. The absence became normal, so normal that he stopped noticing it, until moments when others laughed together, sharing memories of training failures, shared moments he could not relate to. He smiled politely. He always did. Belonging came easily here, but identity did not. The temple shaped him carefully, like stone shaped by water, slow, patient, and just as relentless. He did not resent the Order. He trusted it. Yet somewhere within him, quiet as breath, it was a sense that something important had been set aside, waiting for a future moment when silence would no longer be enough. It did not hurt yet. That was the strangest part. There was no wound to heal, no scar to trace, only a quiet pressure, like a door closed gently and never reopened. The Jedi believed time would complete him, that training would fill every gap, but time only taught him patience. And patience learned too early can become a weapon without meaning to. As the child grew older, the silence followed him, not as comfort, but as company. It listened when no one else did. One day, it would answer back. And that answer, when it finally came, would not sound like the Jedi. It would sound like truth. Silence was only the beginning. Absence was only the seed. Something else was growing, slowly, patiently, and in the space where a name should have been. And the Force remembered, even if the child did not. It always does. It always waits for the moment when forgetting is no longer possible, and the past demands to be seen. That moment was still far away, but it was coming, always patiently. Training became routine. Routine became instinct. The child grew into an initiate who learned faster than expected, not because he pushed himself, but because the lessons felt familiar, as if he were remembering something instead of learning it. Lightsaber forms came naturally. He did not rely on strength. He relied on timing. He watched before he acted, listened before he moved. Masters noticed how rarely he repeated mistakes, how correction only needed to be given once. It unsettled them quietly. The Force responded to him with ease, and not like a tool, not like a challenge, but like a conversation already in progress. Other students struggled with doubt, with fear, with impatience. He struggled with none of these. What troubled him was harder to name. During lessons on Jedi history, he listened more closely than required. Wars, schisms, failures buried beneath measured words. The Order spoke of these events carefully, as if too much honesty might reopen old wounds. He felt those wounds anyway. When masters spoke of the dark side, their voices slowed. Warnings were repeated. Examples were distant. He sensed hesitation, not fear, caution. That distinction mattered to him. He began to notice patterns, moments where questions were redirected, where answers were shortened. He did not challenge them openly. He stored them away. Meditation deepened, and the Force grew clearer. And yet, something remained unreachable. He felt it during exercises meant to empty the mind. A presence without form. Not a voice, not a vision. A pressure, like a hand resting against a closed door. The masters said this was normal, that some doors were meant to stay shut. He accepted that explanation. But acceptance did not erase curiosity. Years passed. He grew taller, stronger, calmer. Other initiates bonded through shared memories of growth, of mistakes corrected together. He remained slightly apart, not isolated, just inward. When praised, he nodded. When corrected, he adjusted. Emotion rarely surfaced, not because it was suppressed, but because it never overwhelmed him. The absence inside him acted as a buffer. Loss could not hurt him because it had already happened. He simply could not remember it. During one training session, a master asked him what motivated him. The question lingered longer than expected. Duty, he answered. It was true, but incomplete. What he did not say was that duty filled space. It gave shape to emptiness. At night, he studied alone. Holocrons, old records. Not forbidden knowledge, just forgotten emphasis. He searched for patterns, for contradictions, for moments where history bent instead of broke. The Jedi had survived many failures. He wondered how. That curiosity did not alarm anyone yet. It sounded like wisdom. But wisdom without context can become something else. He was not restless. He was patient. And patience, when paired with unanswered questions, does not fade. It sharpens. The Jedi believed they were shaping a protector, a guardian of peace. And they did not realize they were teaching him how to endure uncertainty, how to live without certainty. Without a past, the future felt negotiable. That idea settled quietly within him. Not as ambition, not as desire, as possibility. He did not yet know what he would become, but he understood something important. If truth was hidden, then seeking it was not disobedience. It was responsibility. That belief took root slowly, and once rooted, it did not let go. The older he became, the more noticeable the absence felt. Not as pain, not as grief, as outline, like a shadow cast by something that should have been there. The Jedi taught him that identity was shaped by choice, that the past mattered less than the path ahead. He listened. He agreed. But the Force did not behave that way. During deeper meditation, when thoughts slowed to near stillness, he sensed impressions that did not belong to training. A tension in conflict, a familiarity with command, an understanding of loss without memory. These feelings passed quickly. They left no images behind, only certainty. The masters told him this was intuition, a gift. He did not correct them, because intuition did not explain why these impressions carried weight, why they felt earned. As he approached the trials that would define him, he felt no fear. Fear required something to lose. He had already lost everything, even if he could not remember when. Other initiates struggled with attachment, with letting go. He had nothing to release. That made him exceptional and dangerous. The Jedi valued emotional balance, but balance without history can tilt without warning. And no one noticed the shift, not yet. He completed every test with restraint, with precision. He never overreached, never displayed hunger for power. That reassured the council. They believed emptiness had made him safe. They did not realize it had made him adaptable. Adaptability is quiet. It does not announce itself. It waits. He learned of the galaxy beyond the temple through lessons and projections. Wars of the past. Mistakes repeated. He felt no nostalgia, only attention. Patterns mattered more than heroes. He noticed how often the Jedi waited, how often they reacted instead of acted. This observation did not harden him. It stayed neutral, like everything else inside him. When asked about the Force, he described it carefully, as guidance, as presence. He never described it as comfort. Comfort implies return. He had nowhere to return to. That realization did not sadden him. It clarified him. The Jedi thought they had removed the danger by erasing the beginning. But beginnings shape questions, and unanswered questions grow. By the time he stood on the edge of becoming something more, he did not feel complete. He felt prepared to fill the absence with meaning, prepared to decide who he would be instead of remembering who he was. The Force watched this quietly. It did not intervene. It rarely does. The shape of the absence had formed fully now, not as a wound, as a space waiting for purpose. One day, that space would demand answers no master could give. One day, silence would no longer be enough. For now, the child without a name stood calmly within the Order, believing in it, trusting it, and unaware that his greatest conflict was already complete. He had learned how to live without a past, and that lesson, more than any other, would change the galaxy. He did not interrupt. That was the first thing they noticed. Among initiates eager to speak, to answer quickly, to prove worth, he waited. When a master asked a question, others rushed forward with certainty. He listened, not because he was unsure, but because he wanted to hear what was left unsaid. The Jedi Order valued obedience, but it valued awareness more, and awareness often lived in pauses. Revan learned this early. During lessons, his gaze stayed fixed, not on the speaker alone, but on the room itself. He noticed reactions, hesitation, agreement given too quickly. He noticed when masters chose their words carefully. That carefulness mattered. When instruction ended, he did not leave immediately. He stayed behind, not to challenge, but to understand. His questions were never sharp, never confrontational. They were quiet. Why was this choice made instead of another? Why did the council wait when the Republic suffered? Masters answered patiently. Balance, wisdom, restraint. Revan accepted those answers. But acceptance did not mean agreement. As training intensified, his ability grew with it. He excelled in force sensitivity, but he never treated it as dominance. Power interested him less than consequence. When others spoke of strength, he spoke of responsibility. This earned him respect and distance. Some initiates admired him, others avoided him, not out of fear, but discomfort. He reflected too much. Meditation sessions revealed the same pattern. While others focused inward, Revan expanded outward. He sensed the emotions of those around him, not as distractions, but as signals. Yet he felt anxiety ripple through groups, felt doubt cling to certain decisions. He did not judge these feelings, he catalogued them. A Jedi Master once asked him what he felt when touching the Force. He answered honestly, connection, not peace, not power, connection. That answer lingered longer than expected. The Order taught that the Force bound the galaxy together. Revan believed it also carried memory, not personal memory, something larger, a sense of patterns repeating, of mistakes echoing across generations. History lessons confirmed this. The Jedi had faced darkness before. They had survived, but survival often came with cost. Revan noticed how rarely those costs were discussed. Failures were acknowledged, then set aside. The Order moved forward. He wondered what happened to those left behind. So compassion became his defining trait. Not loud compassion, not emotional display, quiet attention. He listened to fellow initiates when they struggled. He remembered their doubts. He did not offer comfort easily. He offered presence. That made others feel seen. It also made him harder to read. Masters debated his future in calm chambers. Brilliant, they said. Focused. Balanced. Yet something about him unsettled tradition. He did not crave rank. He did not seek authority. But authority seemed to follow him anyway. He inspired trust without demanding it. Trust is powerful. The Jedi knew this. They believed trust guided by discipline could shape a great protector. They did not yet see the fracture forming. Listening leads to understanding. Understanding leads to judgment. And judgment, when paired with compassion, does not always align with obedience. Revan did not reject the Order. He believed in it deeply. That belief was the problem. Because belief, once tested, does not bend easily. It breaks. For now, he listened. And the galaxy, still quiet, had not yet realized it was being heard. He never challenged the Order in public. That mattered. Revan understood how defiance sounded. Sharp, reactive. His questions were nothing like that. They came softly, often after lessons, often when the room was nearly empty. He would wait beside a master, not blocking their path, not demanding time, just waiting. When permission was given, he spoke carefully. Why did the council hesitate during border conflicts? Why were some systems abandoned to fate? The questions were framed as concern, not accusation. That made them harder to dismiss. The masters answered with the same calm they taught. The Republic was fragile. Intervention required caution. The dark side thrived on haste. Revan listened. He always listened. But listening did not quiet the discomfort. As years passed, the galaxy outside the temple grew louder. Reports arrived of unrest, of violence beyond Jedi protection. The Order discussed these events in controlled chambers, weighed responses, delayed decisions. Revan noticed how delay became habit. He did not argue against restraint. He understood its value, but he also understood consequence. During one council lecture, a master spoke of the Jedi's duty to maintain balance above all else. Revan asked a single question: what happens when balance favors suffering? The room fell quiet, not in anger, in uncertainty. The Master answered slowly, "As suffering is part of the Force. The Jedi cannot remove it without creating greater imbalance." Revan nodded. He accepted the logic, but the answer followed him long after. If suffering was part of balance, then who decided how much was acceptable? The question stayed with him. He did not repeat it aloud. Instead, he observed. He watched how often the Jedi responded only when chaos became impossible to ignore. How many worlds endured quietly before earning attention. Revan did not label this as failure. He labeled it as limitation. Limitations could be understood. An understanding invited solutions. Other Jedi began to notice his questions. Some admired his thoughtfulness. Others warned him gently. Too many questions can lead to doubt. Revan understood that as well. But doubt, to him, was not rejection. It was responsibility. And he believed belief required examination. Without it, faith became habit. And habit became blindness. He began studying records of past conflicts, ancient wars, moments when the Jedi had acted decisively. Those moments were rare, but when they occurred, they shaped history. He wondered why such action was no longer possible. No master accused him of heresy. No reprimand followed his curiosity. That silence mattered. It told him his questions were not forbidden, only inconvenient. Revan continued asking them, carefully, patiently. Each answer revealed more restraint, more fear of error, fear disguised as wisdom. He did not resent this. Fear meant the Order remembered its past mistakes. But memory alone did not prevent repetition. The Jedi believed waiting preserved peace. Revan began to believe that waiting simply delayed war. So the difference mattered. He kept these thoughts to himself, for now. Because questions, when left unanswered, do not disappear. They mature. And when they finally speak, they do so with certainty. Revan was still a Jedi, still loyal, still calm. But the distance between belief and truth was beginning to show. Not as rebellion, as concern. And concern, when ignored long enough, does not fade. It chooses a direction. He noticed suffering before policy. That difference defined him. When refugees passed through Coruscant, escorted by Republic officials, Revan felt their presence long before he saw them. Fear left traces. So did grief. The Jedi were taught not to involve themselves unless summoned by duty. Revan watched anyway. He did not intervene. He observed. An observation changed him. During missions meant for training, that he paid attention to civilians first, not strategically, instinctively. Other Jedi focused on objectives, on order. Revan focused on aftermath. What remained after the Force calmed. When settlements were secured, he stayed longer than required. He listened to stories no report recorded, lives broken quietly, families displaced without ceremony. These were not Sith plots, not grand threats. They were consequences. The Jedi taught that the Force sought balance, that pain was part of the living galaxy. Revan understood this, but understanding did not equal acceptance. He believed balance did not excuse neglect. Compassion, to him, was not attachment. It was awareness. He did not grow close to individuals. He did not form bonds the Order forbade. Instead, he felt responsibility without ownership. That distinction kept him safe, or so the Jedi believed. Masters praised his restraint, his ability to care without losing control. They did not see how deeply he felt without showing it. Revan learned that doctrines simplified reality. Rules made decisions easier. But simplicity often ignored nuance, and nuance lived where people suffered. During one mission, a village lay ruined between two warring factions. The Jedi mandate was clear: observe, report. Raven followed the mandate, but he returned alone later, not to fight, not to interfere, to listen. The villagers did not know who he was, they only knew he stayed. He listened to their grief without promise, without reassurance. That silence mattered more than comfort. When he returned to the temple, he said nothing of it. There was no rule for what he had done. That unsettled him. True compassion without doctrine felt dangerous, but it also felt honest. He began to notice how often the Jedi framed compassion as a risk. Attachment leads to fear. Fear leads to loss. Revan accepted this truth, but he also saw another one. Detachment could lead to indifference, and indifference left scars just as deep. He did not argue this openly. He demonstrated it through patience, through presence. Other Jedi began seeking his counsel, not for answers, for clarity. He listened to them the same way he listened to the suffering outside the temple, without judgment. This earned him quiet respect and quiet concern, because compassion, when not guided by doctrine, began shaping his decisions. Slowly, he still believed in the Order, still trusted its intentions, but he no longer believed intention was enough. Action mattered, so responsibility mattered. And responsibility, once felt deeply, does not wait forever. The Jedi believed compassion was something to manage. Revan began to believe it was something to answer. That belief did not yet threaten the Order, but it was changing him, gently, irreversibly. Belief does not break suddenly. It stretches first. Revan felt that stretch long before he named it. It appeared in moments of hesitation, in pauses where certainty used to live. The Jedi spoke often of trust in the Order, in the wisdom of the Council. Revan trusted them. That was never in question. But trust did not quiet the growing sense that something essential was being avoided. He noticed how often the Jedi waited for the Force to guide them, instead of shaping events themselves. Waiting felt safe. Waiting felt controlled. But the galaxy did not wait. Reports of conflict arrived faster now. Border systems destabilized. Old threats stirred in forgotten places. The Council discussed, debated, delayed. Revan listened from the edges of these conversations, feeling the weight of each unmade choice. Balance was always cited. Balance justified inaction. He wondered when balance became excuse. This thought frightened him, not because it challenged the Order, but because it made sense. He did not share it. Instead, he tested his belief quietly. He asked himself whether obedience was always the same as wisdom. The answer did not come easily. Meditation brought no clarity, only awareness. Awareness of fear beneath restraint. The Jedi feared repeating the past, feared becoming what they once fought. Revan understood that fear, but fear, even disciplined fear, still shaped decisions. He began to see belief as something fragile, not weak, precious, something that required honesty to survive. Without honesty, belief hardened, and hardened belief resisted change. That resistance worried him. During one council session, a master spoke of destiny, of trusting the Force to unfold as it should. Revan felt a quiet dissonance. Destiny implied inevitability, and inevitability excused passivity. He believed the Force revealed possibilities, not instructions. That belief marked a turning point, not away from the Jedi, but inward. He began to feel separate from doctrine, even as he upheld it, like standing inside a structure while studying its cracks. No one accused him. No warning came. The Order saw no rebellion. They saw patience. They saw discipline. They did not see the quiet shift. Belief was bending now, not toward darkness, not toward ambition, toward responsibility, unbound by permission. Revan still believed in the Jedi's purpose. That was the tragedy, because belief tested by reality does not fade. It transforms. He felt the future pressing closer, like a storm sensed before clouds form. He did not yet know what shape it would take, only that waiting would not stop it. The Order believed time solved most problems. Revan began to believe time revealed them. That belief settled deep. It did not demand action yet, but it prepared him for it. Soon, the galaxy would ask a question the Jedi could not answer quickly enough, and Revan would be listening, as he always had been. The galaxy did not whisper its pain, it screamed. Worlds along the outer rim burned without warning. Trade routes collapsed. Defenses failed. The Mandalorians came without hesitation, their fleets moving with brutal certainty, their armor reflecting the fires of conquered systems. They did not seek balance. They sought dominance. News reached Coruscant in fragments. Refugees, broken transmissions, entire populations displaced or erased. Inside the temple, the response was measured. The council listened. They observed. They waited. Revan felt the shift immediately. The Force grew loud, not with anger, but with fear. Fear left impressions in hyperspace lanes, in crowded refugee halls, in the silence of worlds that no longer answered. The Jedi spoke of caution, of traps, and of unseen hands guiding the Mandalorians forward. They remembered ancient wars. They remembered how intervention had once shattered the Order. Revan remembered none of that. What he felt was present, immediate. He felt lives slipping away while discussions continued behind closed doors. The council debated strategy. They weighed consequences. Revan listened. He always listened. But the waiting felt different now. This was not patience. It was distance. Each delay echoed in the Force like a wound left untreated. When reports confirmed entire systems lost, Revan felt something tighten inside him. Not anger, resolve. The Jedi were protectors. That was their purpose. Waiting while the galaxy suffered felt like betrayal of that purpose. Masters spoke of the dark side's hunger for chaos, of how war fed it. Revan did not argue. He understood that war twisted the Force, but he also understood that surrendering worlds did the same. During meditation, the Force no longer felt balanced. It felt strained, like something held back too long. Other Jedi sensed the unrest. Many felt the same pull, but they trusted the Council. Revan trusted them too. Trust did not quiet his conscience. He began studying Mandalorian movements, not as a strategist, as a witness. Patterns emerged. Civilian targets. Calculated terror. The Mandalorians were testing resolve and finding none. When Revan spoke, it was not in accusation. It was in concern. How many worlds must fall before waiting becomes complicity? The Council answered calmly. The Jedi must not rush into darkness. The Mandalorians wanted reaction. Revan accepted the logic, but logic did not erase consequence, and each fallen system weighed on him. The Force did not condemn the Council. It did not praise Revan. It simply reflected suffering. That reflection became unbearable. The galaxy was screaming, and the Jedi were listening from too far away. Revan felt the divide forming, not between light and dark, between action and obedience. The Mandalorian wars were no longer distant. They were everywhere, and soon, listening would no longer be enough. The Council called it restraint. They believed time was a shield. While fleets burned across the outer rim, the Jedi remained within their chambers, studying maps that changed faster than decisions. Revan stood among them, listening as always. World after world fell, not all to conquest, some to fear. Planets surrendered before Mandalorian ships arrived, hoping submission would spare them, but it did not. The Mandalorians punished weakness. They respected only resistance. Revan felt this truth clearly. He felt it in the Force, where despair spread faster than fire. Each delay deepened the wound. The Council spoke of unseen Sith influence, of ancient enemies waiting to exploit chaos. They feared stepping into a larger trap. Revan understood the fear. But fear did not slow Mandalorian advance. The Republic pleaded for aid. Senators argued. Systems begged. The Jedi responded with silence and diplomacy. That silence weighed heavily. Revan began traveling on his own authority, not to fight, to witness. He saw refugee convoys drifting without escort. He saw children hiding in ruined cities. No Sith banners marked these losses, only absence. The Jedi presence was missed more than it was requested. And other knights felt the same unrest. Some spoke quietly to Revan. Others watched him carefully. He did not recruit them. He did not encourage rebellion. He simply spoke honestly. "The galaxy is dying," he said once, "and we are choosing not to hear it." That sentence followed him. Masters cautioned him. Action without approval risks falling. Revan accepted that risk existed, but risk already surrounded them. The Mandalorians did not wait for consensus. They advanced with certainty, using fear as strategy, turning survival into surrender. Revan studied their tactics. He did not admire them. He recognized effectiveness. That recognition disturbed him. It suggested that hesitation was weakness. The Jedi had taught him restraint. They had taught him control. They had not taught him how to watch innocents die while remaining still. Meditation offered no peace now. The Force pressed constantly. It did not urge him toward darkness. It urged him toward action. That distinction mattered. Revan was not angry with the Council. He was disappointed. Disappointment carries weight. It changes perspective. He began to see obedience differently, not as virtue, as choice. And choices carried responsibility. Waiting was a choice. The Jedi had chosen it. That choice would define them. Revan felt something settle inside him. Not rebellion, not ambition, decision. He would not abandon the Order, but he would not abandon the galaxy either. The distance between those truths was closing rapidly. Soon, waiting would no longer be possible. And when that moment arrived, Revan knew exactly which voice he would follow. The Council's answer never changed. Caution. Each session ended the same way. More data requested. More time granted. The Mandalorians used that time well. They adapted. They hardened. They learned the Republic's fear. Revan watched the Council struggle with certainty. They feared repeating ancient disasters, feared becoming generals instead of guardians. That fear was honest, but honesty did not stop fleets from burning. During one gathering, a master spoke of the Jedi's duty to the Force itself, not to any single government. Revan felt the truth in that statement, but he also felt what was missing. The Force lived in people, in lives ending too early. Separating the two felt artificial. He asked a final question. If the Jedi exist to serve the Force, and the Force flows through all living beings, how can ignoring their suffering be service at all? The chamber fell silent, not defensive, reflective. The masters exchanged looks. They did not doubt Revan's intent, they doubted the conclusion. One master spoke gently. Intervention risks becoming conquest. War changes those who fight it. Revan agreed. He knew war left scars, but inaction left graves. The council chose to wait. That choice was final. Revan felt something close within him. Not anger, acceptance. Acceptance that the order would not act, that knowledge carried clarity. He did not leave the council in protest. He bowed respectfully. Respect mattered. What he carried from that room was not defiance, it was responsibility. Outside the temple, other Jedi waited. They watched him carefully. Some sensed the shift, some feared it. Revan did not speak immediately. He knew words carried weight now. When he finally spoke, and it was simple, the Jedi will not fight this war. Silence followed. He did not ask them to choose. He did not promise victory. He offered truth. The Mandalorians will not stop. The Republic cannot stand alone. Some turned away. Others stayed. Those who stayed did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They listened. Listening had brought Revan here. Now it carried him forward. He made no speeches. He issued no commands. He simply decided. He would act without permission. Not as a dark Jedi, not as a traitor. As a protector when protection was refused. That distinction mattered to him. He did not abandon the light. He stepped beyond the Order's boundaries to preserve its purpose. History would not see it that way. History rarely does. As he prepared to leave Coruscant, the Force felt different, not lighter, focused, and like a blade finally drawn. Revan knew the cost. He knew war would change him. But he also knew waiting already had. The choice the Council would not make now belonged to him. And once made, it could not be undone. He did not declare himself leader. That mattered. Revan understood symbols and how easily they replaced intent. He did not want followers. He wanted action. Jedi began to move with him quietly, not in defiance, in resolve. They were knights, not an army. Yet the galaxy did not care what they called themselves. When Revan left Coruscant, the temple felt smaller behind him, not diminished, distant. The force around him sharpened. Responsibility has weight. It settles differently than obedience. Obedience asks permission. Responsibility answers need. Revan felt the difference with clarity. As Mandalorian fleets advanced, he met them without waiting, not recklessly, deliberately. He studied their methods, their psychology, their respect for strength. He adapted. The Jedi who followed him adapted too. They became commanders out of necessity, strategists shaped by consequence. The war changed quickly. Republic morale shifted. Systems resisted. The Mandalorians took notice. Revan did not celebrate victories. He counted losses. Each life weighed on him. Each choice recorded itself in the Force. The Jedi Council watched from afar. They did not intervene. They had chosen their path. Revan had chosen his. The distance between them grew, not from hatred, but from reality. Revan still believed in the light. That belief guided every order, every sacrifice. But belief alone did not win wars. Action did. As battles escalated, and so did Revan's influence. not through command, through certainty. Others trusted him because he did not hesitate. Hesitation had already cost too much. The Mandalorian Wars became something else, not just a conflict of fleets, a test of conviction. Revan felt himself changing, not hardening, focusing. The emptiness from his childhood, the questions from the temple, the compassion sharpened by suffering, all converged here. This was where they led. Responsibility demanded sacrifice. Revan accepted that cost before anyone asked him to. Obedience would have kept him pure. Responsibility made him effective. The Force did not condemn him. It followed. That truth unsettled those who watched. Some whispered that he was falling. Revan did not listen. He had listened long enough. Now he acted. Each victory pushed the Mandalorians back, and each loss carved deeper resolve. The Jedi who followed him were no longer waiting. They were fighting. History would later debate this moment, whether Revan saved the galaxy or doomed it. Those questions came later. In this moment, there was only fire, movement, and choice. Revan chose responsibility over obedience, and the galaxy felt the impact immediately. The war did not corrupt him. It revealed him. They began to recognize his face. That was the problem. Across battle reports and transmission feeds, the same image appeared. Calm, focused. A Jedi leading fleets into fire. Soldiers spoke his name with hope. Enemies learned it with caution. Revan noticed the change before anyone said it aloud. Where he went, attention followed. Expectation followed. In war councils, eyes turned toward him instinctively. Not because he demanded it, because he decided. Decisions cost lives. He felt every one of them. After battles, he walked among the wounded, among the dead. He did not speak often. There were no words strong enough. The Force carried grief heavily now, not overwhelming, constant. Every command echoed. Every loss returned to him in quiet moments. So when engines powered down and the stars drifted past without sound, the more visible he became, the heavier that weight grew. Revan understood something then. A face invited connection. Connection invited attachment. Attachment invited hesitation. Hesitation killed soldiers. The realization was not cruel. It was precise. He could not afford to be seen as a man. Men were mourned. Symbols endured. The decision formed slowly, without ceremony. No declaration. No announcement. One day, before a major engagement, Revan entered the command chamber wearing a mask. It was simple, unadorned, functional. It hid nothing essential, but it changed everything. The room fell silent, not in fear, in understanding. The mask removed familiarity, removed expression. Orders now came from something larger than a single life. Soldiers focused, and they followed without wondering what the man beneath felt. That distance mattered. Revan felt the shift immediately. The Force moved differently around him, not colder, quieter. Pain dulled. Grief still existed, but it no longer struck directly. The mask did not erase responsibility. It distributed it. Losses became part of a greater whole, not individual failures replayed endlessly. Revan did not hide to escape guilt. He hid to survive it. As battles intensified, the symbol grew stronger. Enemies spoke of the masked Jedi who did not hesitate. Allies spoke of him as certainty. Revan allowed the myth to grow, not out of pride, out of necessity. The man beneath the mask was still listening, still counting, still carrying names he would never speak aloud. At night, alone in his quarters, he removed the mask slowly. He sat with the silence, without witnesses, without expectation. That was where grief lived now, contained, controlled. The mask did not make him cruel. It made him distant. Distance saved lives. The Jedi Council observed the change. Some were concerned, others relieved. The war required figures larger than individuals. Revan had become one. He did not celebrate this transformation. He accepted it. Because war did not ask who he wanted to be. It demanded what he could become. And the mask answered that demand, not by hiding his face, by protecting what remained behind it. The mask changed how the war saw him. It also changed how he saw the war. Messages addressed the symbol now, not the man. Orders were followed faster, questions fewer. Revan became an idea moving through fleets, an answer to panic, where Mandalorian banners rose, and the masked figure followed, and resistance hardened. The Republic began to believe again. That belief was dangerous. Hope concentrates pressure. Revan felt it settle on his shoulders with every victory. He did not deny the symbol. He shaped it. He learned when to appear and when to remain unseen. He understood that presence mattered as much as action. The Mandalorians noticed too. They adapted their tactics. They hunted the symbol. Bounties circulated. Stories spread. The masked Jedi became a target, and targets draw fire away from others. Revan accepted that role without comment. He planned battles knowing eyes would be on him, knowing risk would cluster around his position. He adjusted formations. He absorbed danger. That choice saved lives. It also deepened the divide between the symbol and the man. Among Jedi commanders, the change was visible. Some followed him out of trust. Others followed because the war demanded certainty. Revan did not question their reasons. Unity mattered more than purity. In briefings, his voice stayed calm. The mask flattened emotion. That was intentional. Emotion distracted. The Force flowed cleaner when expression was limited. Revan felt less torn between compassion and command. Decisions came easier. He hated that truth. But he did not reject it. The war rewarded clarity. As campaigns expanded, the symbol spread faster than he could travel. Hollow images preceded him. Stories arrived early. Some were exaggerated. He did not correct them. Myths move morale in ways facts cannot. The Jedi Council monitored these developments carefully. They saw how the mask stabilized fronts, how Revan unified fractured resistance. As concern remained, symbols grow beyond control. Revan knew this too. He set boundaries quietly. He refused titles, refused ceremonies. He did not allow statues or honors during the war. The symbol was temporary. It had to be. At least, that was what he told himself. Inside, the man behind the mask grew quieter. Not numb, focused. Grief was compartmentalized. Doubt postponed. There would be time later. For now, the war required decisiveness. Revan delivered it. The Mandalorians met resistance they did not expect. Not chaos, not desperation. Order, purpose. They respected strength, and the symbol radiated it. Each engagement reinforced the myth. The masked Jedi did not waver, did not retreat. He advanced until the enemy broke. Revan counted the cost privately. He did not allow the symbol to feel it. And that separation kept him effective. It also carried risk. Symbols are easy to follow, hard to question. Revan remained aware of that danger. He encouraged debate in private, listened to dissent, The mask was not absolute. It was a tool. For now. The galaxy needed a figure strong enough to stand between it and extinction. Revan became that figure without asking permission, without asking forgiveness. Becoming the symbol was not about ego, it was about survival. And the war was far from over. Victory never felt clean. After each battle, the reports ended, but the names did not. They followed him. The mask absorbed the war's noise, but grief slipped through the edges. In command rooms, he stood still as casualty numbers appeared. Thousands saved, hundreds lost. Numbers were easier than faces. Revan learned that quickly. The Force, Shal, however, remembered faces. It carried final moments. Fear, resolve, regret. These impressions gathered around him after the fighting stopped. He felt them most in silence. When fleets regrouped, when hyperspace hummed low, when no one needed the symbol. That was when the mask grew heavy. Revan did not remove it immediately. He sat with the weight first. Grief demanded structure. He allowed it space, but not control. Each loss was acknowledged internally, never allowed. Public mourning weakened resolve. Private mourning preserved sanity. He memorized the fallen, not names, always. Moments. A pilot who stayed too long. A Jedi who held the line. These memories layered quietly, never spilling over. The mask made this possible. Without it, his face would betray him. Grief has expression. He could not afford expression, and soldiers needed certainty, not sorrow. The symbol could not bend. Revan learned to separate time. War, hours. Silence, hours. During silence, he removed the mask slowly, as if acknowledging something alive. He did not speak. The Force did enough speaking. It showed him what he could not change. This was the cost of command. He accepted it without resentment. Resentment distracted. The Jedi Order had warned that attachment led to suffering. They were right, but detachment had its own price. Revan walked between both. He cared, deeply, and he acted anyway. That balance cut into him. Grief did not make him hesitate. It made him precise. He planned battles with care sharpened by loss. Each decision carried memory. He adjusted strategies to reduce cost, even when it slowed progress. The Mandalorians noticed. They adapted again. The war became colder. Efficiency against efficiency. Revan felt himself changing. Not toward cruelty, toward containment. Emotion was boxed, labeled, stored away. This frightened him briefly. Then he understood. Grief unmanaged destroys commanders. Grief managed reshapes them. He chose reshaping. The mask became more than symbol. It became boundary. Between the man who felt everything and the commander who could not. At times, he wondered what would remain when the war ended. The thought lingered only briefly. The war had not ended. As losses continued, so did resolve. Revan did not harden his heart. He armored it. Armor cracks eventually. He knew this. But cracks could wait. For now, the galaxy needed him whole, even if that wholeness was carefully constructed. Grief stayed with him, worn quietly, unseen. It contained behind a mask that hid not weakness, but endurance. When the mask came off, there was no relief, only quiet. Revan sat alone more often now, separate from strategy rooms and command decks. The war did not follow him there, it waited outside. Without the mask, he felt smaller, not weaker, human. The distance he maintained for others collapsed inward. Here, there were no soldiers watching, no expectations to uphold, only memory. He allowed himself to remember faces, voices, moments interrupted by blaster fire. He did not replay battles. He replayed choices. This one, that one. The Force did not judge him. It reflected him. That reflection was difficult to endure. The man behind the mask questioned things the symbol could not afford to. Had he chosen the least costly path, or simply the most efficient one? And had the mask protected others, or insulated him from feeling too much? These questions remained unanswered. War did not pause for introspection, so he compartmentalized again. The man existed here. The symbol existed out there. That division was deliberate, necessary. Revan did not lose himself to the mask. He hid himself within it. There is a difference. Losing oneself is surrender. Hiding oneself is survival. He believed this firmly. Still, the longer the war lasted, the harder it became to remember who the man was without command. The Jedi teachings returned to him in fragments. Balance, self-awareness, control. He practiced them privately. Meditation became shorter, more focused. Not for peace, for stability. He needed to remain intact, because the war was not finished, because the Mandalorians were adapting, and because something darker stirred at the edges of awareness, something the Council had feared from the beginning. Revan sensed it too now, not clearly, not fully, but enough to know this war was shaping more than borders. The man behind the mask understood this first. He felt the pull of necessity tightening. Harder choices would come, choices the symbol could execute, but the man would have to live with. That knowledge settled heavily. Revan did not despair. Despair wastes energy. He accepted the trajectory, accepted that the mask would remain long after the war no longer required it. That realization scared him quietly. But fear did not stop him. It sharpened his awareness. The mask would not be removed lightly. Once worn long enough, it reshaped the face beneath. Revan knew this. He accepted it as another cost. So when he stood again among his forces, the mask returned to its place. The symbol resumed its role. The galaxy saw certainty. Only the Force saw both. The man and the weapon. The protector and the strategist. They coexisted now, not in harmony, in function. The mask had been born in war, and it would not be easily set aside. Because behind it, a man carried too much to ever stand unguarded again. They did not meet as equals, not at first. Revan was already becoming something larger than the war. Malak was still becoming himself. He followed closely, not out of weakness, out of belief. Malak believed in Revan the way soldiers believe in banners, with hunger, with certainty. Where Revan listened, Malak spoke. Where Revan measured, Malak pushed. The difference did not divide them, it sharpened them. They fought side by side across burning systems, their movements learned, their instincts aligned. Revan planned the path. Malak enforced it. Together, they became inevitable. Malak admired Revan's calm. He mistook it for restraint. He did not yet see the cost beneath it. On battlefields, Malak was louder. His presence carried fury. His strikes carried finality. His soldiers rallied behind that energy. Revan noticed. He did not discourage it. Every war needs fire. Malak believed fire won wars. Revan believed fire needed direction. The Force reacted differently to them. Around Revan, it tightened, focused. Around Malak, it surged. uncontrolled. Neither noticed this at first. Victory blurred differences. They shared command rooms, late discussions, moments where silence replaced words. Brotherhood formed in that silence, not sentimental, functional. They trusted each other's instincts. Malak learned to wait when Revan waited. Revan learned to strike when Malak struck. It felt balanced, for a time. As campaigns deepened, they crossed into regions untouched by Republic charts. Unknown space. The Mandalorians had fled here, so had something else. Revan sensed it first. An absence heavier than silence. Malak sensed power. That difference mattered. Revan studied ancient signals, old ruins, fragments of history erased by time. Malak felt the pull immediately. Power waited here, untouched, unclaimed. He spoke of it openly. This power could end the war, he said. Revan listened. He always listened. But he did not answer quickly. They stood together on shattered worlds, looking at relics older than the Republic. Malak felt destiny. Revan felt warning. Still, they moved forward together. Brotherhood carried momentum. Turning back felt like betrayal. Malak began to change. Not suddenly, subtly. He spoke of strength more often, of domination rather than defense. He began to enjoy the fear their presence created. Revan noticed. He did not confront it yet. War reshapes everyone. He believed guidance would be enough. That loyalty would hold. Malak believed loyalty meant following until there was no one left to follow. That belief stayed unspoken. For now. They were still brothers, still aligned. Two shadows moving along the same path, one watching the horizon, the other watching the crown at the end of the road. The darkness ahead did not separate them yet. It welcomed them both. War stripped pretense quickly. What remained was loyalty. Revan tested Malak not with words, but with silence. He watched how Malak reacted when orders were delayed, when plans shifted, when patience was required. Malak endured, not easily, but faithfully. On fractured worlds, where Mandalorian resistance hardened into desperation, Malak never questioned Revan's lead. He executed commands with intensity, and sometimes exceeding intent, but never direction. That mattered. Revan trusted him with increasingly difficult decisions, holding lines while civilians escaped, leading assaults meant to draw enemy fire. Malak did not hesitate. He embraced these roles. Each sacrifice reinforced his belief that strength was proven through endurance, through dominance over fear. Revan saw this belief forming. He understood where it came from. The war rewarded aggression. Mercy slowed outcomes. Malak learned quickly which actions ended battles faster. Revan weighed those actions carefully. Speed saved lives. Speed also destroyed them. The balance between the two became their shared burden. They spoke often during long hyperspace jumps, not of philosophy, of logistics, of attrition, of what the enemy respected. Malak spoke plainly. Fear, he said. Fear kept worlds from resisting. Fear shortened wars. Revan did not dismiss this. Fear was effective. But it lingered after victory. He countered with restraint. Fear could win battles, but it could not build peace. Malak accepted this, but his patience thinned. He began measuring success differently, not by survival, by submission. Still, loyalty held. When Revan hesitated, Malak waited. When Revan advanced, Malak followed without doubt. That consistency forged trust. Other Jedi noticed it. They spoke of Revan and Malak as if they were inseparable, a pair. Revan did not correct this. Pairs simplified command. They also blurred accountability. Malak began to speak for Revan in briefings. Revan allowed it. Efficiency mattered more than image. Yet subtle shifts occurred. Malak's confidence grew faster than his restraint. He began anticipating orders, sometimes correctly, sometimes too early. Revan corrected him quietly. Malak accepted correction, but something changed in his eyes. Correction began to feel like limitation. The Force responded differently now. It grew heavier around Malak, more responsive to his intensity. Revan sensed this. He did not name it yet. The war still required unity. Breaking loyalty now would fracture command. So Revan guided instead of restrained. He placed Malak where strength was needed most. Front lines, decisive strikes. Malak thrived there. Each success reinforced his identity as the blade of Revan's will. That identity became essential to him. Brotherhood deepened through shared risk. They survived ambushes together, retreated together, advanced together. Trust formed not through comfort, but through survival. The galaxy began to speak their names together. Revan, the mind. Malak, the fist. Neither objected. They believed the war demanded this division. What neither yet understood was how difficult it would be to reverse it. Loyalty forged in war does not fade when the war ends. It seeks purpose, and when purpose shifts, so does loyalty. For now, the bond held, strong, unquestioned. But pressure was building, and pressure reveals fault lines. The war no longer felt temporary to Malak, it felt defining. Each victory reinforced the same lesson. Power decided outcomes. Revan used it carefully. Malak wanted to use it fully. That difference widened quietly. In the aftermath of battles, Malak stood taller, not with pride, with certainty. Fear followed him now, not only from enemies, but from those who served beside him. He noticed, and he did not reject it. Fear meant recognition. Recognition meant control. Revan saw this change before Malak understood it himself. He heard it in Malak's tone, felt it in the Force, intensity without pause. During one campaign, Malak suggested destroying a city to force surrender across the system. The plan was efficient. Revan refused it. Lives still remained there. Malak accepted the decision publicly. Privately, the refusal stayed with him. He began to see restraint as unnecessary suffering. If fear could end war faster, why deny it? That question rooted itself deeply. The unknown regions amplified these thoughts. Ancient ruins, Sith remnants, power left behind by empires that had not feared using it. Malak felt drawn to these places, not cautiously, hungrily. Revan approached them with distance. He studied, observed. Malak reached. He spoke of strength waiting to be claimed, of tools the Jedi refused to acknowledge. Revan warned him carefully. Power without discipline consumed its wielder. Malak listened, but listening was no longer enough. He had tasted command, felt lives move at his word. That feeling lingered. The mask Revan wore was symbolic. Malak wanted something tangible, a presence that demanded obedience without explanation. In battle, Malak began to press harder. He pushed forces forward when retreat might have saved lives. Sometimes it worked. Those moments mattered more to him than the failures. Success reinforced hunger. Revan corrected him again. Not sharply, but the correction landed differently now. It felt like constraint placed on potential. Malak began to believe he could do more if unrestrained. The Force responded, and it surged when he embraced aggression. answered faster. That feedback was intoxicating. He did not call it darkness. He called it clarity. Revan felt the shift clearly now. Not corruption, desire. Desire to shape outcomes absolutely. Revan spoke to him privately. He reminded him of purpose, of protection. Malak nodded. He agreed. But his agreement felt hollow. Purpose had changed meaning. To Malak, protection meant dominance. Dominance prevented resistance. Resistance caused suffering. The logic felt complete to him. He did not see the flaw. The seed of hunger does not announce itself. It grows quietly, fed by validation and success. Malak did not yet see Revan as obstacle, but he began to see him as limit. Limits frustrate hunger. The bond between them remained, strong on the surface, but beneath it something strained, and two visions of the future no longer aligned. The darkness ahead did not need to divide them. It only needed to wait, because hunger, once awakened, does not return to sleep. The fracture did not come with violence. It came with distance. Revan noticed Malak speaking less during strategy sessions, listening less, acting more. Orders were still followed, but interpretation crept in. Malak began executing plans the way he believed they should be carried out, not the way they were intended. At first, the results justified him. Systems fell faster. Resistance collapsed sooner. The Republic praised efficiency. Revan felt unease. Efficiency without restraint always demanded payment later. Their private conversations changed. Where once they debated openly, now Malak asserted. Strength ends wars, he said. Fear keeps order. Revan responded carefully. Order built on fear does not last. Malak did not argue. He smiled. That smile lingered too long. The force between them felt strained now, not hostile, competitive. Malak no longer drew strength with Revan. He drew it against him. The unknown regions deepened this divide. Ancient Sith worlds whispered promises. Revan heard warnings. Malak heard affirmation. He began studying artifacts alone, meditating without guidance. Revan cautioned him again. Power taken without balance always demands payment. Malak answered calmly. Every war demands payment. The difference was no longer subtle. Malak believed the cost was worth it. Revan believed cost mattered. Brotherhood strained under this weight. Trust does not break when loyalty ends. It breaks when purpose diverges. During one decisive campaign, Shah Malak ordered an orbital strike before evacuation was complete. The victory was total. The loss was irreversible. Revan confronted him privately, not as commander, as brother. Lives were still there, Revan said. Malak did not deny it. They would have resisted longer, he replied. The war would have dragged on. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Revan saw it then. Malak no longer saw individuals. He saw outcomes. The mask Revan wore had protected his heart. Malak had removed his entirely. From that moment, brotherhood became history. They still fought together, still won battles. But something essential was gone. Malak began speaking of the future differently. Not peace, rule, stability enforced, not chosen. Revan listened. He did not interrupt. He understood now that loyalty had transformed into ambition, as ambition dressed as necessity. The Force reflected this clearly. Where once their paths aligned, now they ran parallel, close, but never touching. The darkness ahead did not need to break them apart. It only needed patience. Malak believed himself ready to shape the galaxy, Revan believed no one should. That belief placed them on opposite sides of a line neither could ignore. The friendship that built an empire was becoming the reason it would fall. Neither spoke of it aloud. Some truths do not need words. They wait for the moment when silence can no longer hold them. They crossed the edge of known space without ceremony. No banners, no declarations. Only coordinates the Republic had abandoned long ago. The Mandalorians fled here first. Revan followed. Stars thinned. Hyperspace routes fractured. Navigation became instinct instead of chart. The Force felt different beyond the rim. Not louder, older, like breath held for centuries. Revan sensed it immediately. A presence not bound to planets, not tied to living minds. It waited. Malak felt it too, but where Revan felt caution, Malak felt invitation. Ancient ruins drifted in darkness, half buried in asteroid fields. Structures carved with purpose long before the Republic existed. Revan studied them silently. These were not Jedi constructs, not temples of balance. They were tools, built to channel, to amplify, to command. The Force pressed against his awareness like a question, not demanding, patient. He remembered the Council's warnings, the fear of ancient traps. But fear did not dominate him here. Clarity did. The Mandalorians had not fled randomly. They were drawn, driven by something they did not understand. Revan traced their path carefully. Each system carried echoes, fragments of power used, then abandoned. The war had pushed him here. That truth mattered. This was not curiosity, not ambition. It was necessity. The galaxy could not survive another prolonged war. If power existed that could end it, Revan believed it had to be understood, not worshipped, not feared, understood. As fleets regrouped near an uncharted system, the Force grew unmistakable, a pull without direction, not drawing him forward, but listening as he approached. Malak spoke first. "This is it," he said. Revan did not answer. He felt the weight of history pressing closer. This place remembered empires, remembered Sith. Not their rage, their certainty. The Jedi spoke of darkness as temptation. This felt different. It felt like infrastructure, like a machine built for belief. Revan slowed his advance. He did not rush discovery. The war had taught him what haste destroyed. The Force did not punish his restraint. It adjusted, responded, as if acknowledging awareness. That unsettled him more than threat. He reached outward carefully. The presence did not resist. It responded, not with words, with alignment, as if testing whether he would impose himself or listen first. Revan listened. What he sensed was vast, ancient, not alive, yet not dead, and a structure built to answer will. Malak felt only one truth. "This power ends wars," he said quietly. Revan felt the same possibility. He also felt the cost. Power like this did not corrupt through impulse. It reshaped through logic, through justification. The realization settled calmly. This place would not force him to fall. It would wait until he chose to stand differently. Revan did not turn back. Turning back would leave the galaxy burning. So he stepped closer, not as conqueror, not as seeker, but as a man convinced he could carry what others could not. The forge waited, and for the first time, it answered him back. The voices did not speak aloud. They did not need to. They moved through sensation, through understanding shaped long before language. Revan felt them when he stood still, not whispers, memories, such impressions left behind by minds that had once shaped the galaxy without apology. These were not Sith screaming in anger. They were Sith who had already won. Certainty lingered in the structure itself. The Jedi spoke of the dark side as corruption through desire. This felt different. This felt instructional. The Forge did not promise power. It assumed its use. Revan sensed no temptation, no seduction, only expectation. As if the question was not whether he would use it, but how. Malak moved through the ruins with confidence. He felt at home here. The walls responded to his presence. Energy pathways awakened. That reaction did not escape Revan's notice. The force around Malak surged eagerly. Around Revan, it steadied. The voices shifted their focus. They pressed closer to Revan's awareness, not demanding loyalty, but testing judgment. They showed him fragments, not visions of conquest, but of structure. Armies supplied without end. Fleets rebuilt faster than destroyed. War without attrition. The logic was flawless. A war that never exhausted itself would eventually end all resistance. Revan understood the appeal immediately. This was not rage. It was solution. The Jedi Order had always feared power that removed consequence. This was why. Because power like this made terrible decisions feel responsible. Revan withdrew slightly, not in rejection, in assessment. He tested his thoughts against the presence. It did not resist scrutiny. It welcomed it. The Forge was not alive. It was obedient. It amplified will without questioning purpose. That realization chilled him. Power without judgment reflects the mind that wields it. Malak felt no chill. He felt validation. He spoke of ending the war in weeks, of forcing peace through inevitability. Revan listened. He did not correct him yet. The voices did not favor Malak's hunger. They favored Revan's restraint. That disturbed Malak quietly. The Forge responded most clearly when Revan considered structure over dominance, control over chaos. The ancient Sith had not ruled through madness. They ruled through order, enforced absolutely. The Jedi feared such order. Revan began to see why. Order without compassion becomes tyranny, but compassion without power becomes helplessness. The Forge offered an answer to that imbalance, not a moral one, a functional one. Revan realized something critical. This place did not turn Jedi into Sith. It clarified intent. It rewarded decisiveness. The danger was not corruption. It was confidence. Confidence that one mind could shape the fate of millions more wisely than uncertainty ever could. The voices did not lie. They presented outcomes. It was Revan who supplied justification. That frightened him briefly. Then he steadied himself. Fear alone was not wisdom. The Jedi Council had been paralyzed by it. The galaxy had paid the price. Revan felt the weight of that history press in. The Forge waited for choice. Not surrender. Choice. He understood now why the Jedi had fallen before. Not because they were weak, because they believed themselves necessary. Revan believed the same, but he believed it calmly. That calm convinced him he was still in control. The voices receded slightly, as if acknowledging readiness. They had not converted him. They had aligned with him. And that alignment felt dangerously reasonable. The Forge did not demand surrender. It waited for intention. Revan understood this clearly now. This was not a relic to be seized, not a throne to be claimed. It was a system, a response mechanism built to amplify will. The ancient Sith had not knelt before it. They had used it. That distinction mattered. Revan approached the core slowly, not with hunger, but with calculation. He tested boundaries. He did not pour himself into it. He did not reach blindly. He observed how it reacted when he considered outcomes instead of dominance. The forge responded gently. Energy stabilized. Flows aligned. Power did not surge. It organized. That response confirmed his belief. This was not corruption. This was tool-making on a galactic scale. Malak grew impatient. He wanted results. He spoke of fleets replenished instantly, of enemies crushed beneath endless numbers. Revan listened. He did not disagree. He reframed. Endless fleets end wars faster, he said. Faster wars save lives. Malak agreed instantly. But where Malak saw conquest, Revan saw containment. Containment required discipline. He began directing small interactions, minor power draws, limited output. The forge obeyed precisely. No backlash, no resistance. The more controlled the request, the cleaner the response. This reassured him. A corrupting power would push excess. This rewarded restraint. Revan believed that meant safety. He believed wrong things required emotion, anger, fear. He felt neither. He felt certainty. Certainty made everything seem manageable. He explained his reasoning to Malak carefully. This power must be used sparingly, he said, as leverage, not domination. Malak accepted the explanation outwardly, but frustration simmered beneath his calm. To Malak, holding back felt like weakness. Revan noticed the difference growing again. He adjusted access subtly, not to control Malak, but to protect stability. The forge responded only to Revan's alignment. That was not intentional. It was structural. Revan understood this too late. Power offered without resistance creates hierarchy automatically. The forge had chosen its interface, not out of loyalty, out of compatibility. Revan felt responsible for that. He told himself this was temporary, that once the war ended, the forge would no longer be needed. Tools can be set down. That belief anchored him. He did not consider how often tools reshape the hand that uses them. The more he worked with the forge, the quieter the force felt. Not diminished, ordered. Chaos retreated. The galaxy began to feel solvable. Revan did not feel triumphant. He felt relieved. Relief is dangerous. It convinces the mind that difficult choices are finished, that the worst is over. Malak watched all of this closely. He saw how the forge answered Revan alone, how authority shifted naturally. That observation settled heavily. Revan believed he had not taken power. He believed it had simply aligned with him. The distinction comforted him. He did not realize that power does not need to be seized to be claimed. It only needs to be accepted. And Revan, calmly, thoughtfully, had done exactly that. The fall did not feel like descent. There was no moment of loss, no surge of anger, no break in control. Revan continued to believe he was choosing carefully. And that belief became the foundation. Each decision felt measured, each action justified. The forge did not urge excess. It responded to intention alone. Revan intended order. Order felt like mercy. The war had taught him what chaos cost. Worlds burned while leaders debated. Lives ended while councils waited. The forge removed waiting. It replaced uncertainty with outcome. Revan believed that was progress. He began directing larger operations. Fleet production increased. Supply lines stabilized. The Republic noticed change immediately. Victories come faster. Resistance collapsed sooner. Hope returned. Revan felt no pride in this. He felt responsibility easing. The pressure that had shaped him since the war began finally lessened. That relief confirmed his path. He told himself that darkness would feel different, so that corruption would announce itself. This felt calm, controlled, efficient. The Jedi Council remained distant. They sensed something shifting, but distance muted clarity. Revan did not hide what he was doing. He simply framed it as necessity. Necessity answers questions before they form. Malak watched as authority consolidated. The Forge responded faster now, more completely. Revan's presence alone stabilized its output. That compatibility deepened. Revan did not question it anymore. He trusted his judgment. That trust became habit. Habit replaced reflection. Reflection had once slowed him. Now speed mattered. The Force remained quiet around him, not disturbed, aligned. That silence convinced him he had not fallen. The dark side screamed. This whispered. The distinction mattered deeply to him. He believed darkness required passion, and he felt none. Only focus, only resolve, only certainty. The Jedi teachings had warned against attachment and fear. Revan felt neither. He had replaced them with belief in outcome, belief that suffering could be reduced if control was absolute. That belief hardened gently. It did not crack his identity. It reshaped it. Revan still saw himself as protector, still believed he served the galaxy. That belief no longer required permission. The Forge no longer felt external. It felt integrated, an extension of decision-making, a solution engine answering need. Revan stopped thinking of it as Sith. It was older than labels, older than the Jedi. That realization freed him from caution. Labels limit understanding. Function matters more. Malak felt the shift fully now. He saw that Revan no longer questioned whether to use the Forge, only how. Oh, that frightened him and inspired him. Revan did not notice the change in Malak. His focus narrowed. The galaxy appeared as systems and outcomes. Lives became variables, still valued, but abstracted. That abstraction made command easier. It also marked the turning point. Revan had not chosen darkness. He had chosen control. Control wrapped in calm. Control justified by loss. The Forge did not corrupt him. It reflected him. And in that reflection, he did not see a monster. He saw the only answer left standing. That belief sealed the fall. Not with a scream, with agreement. They did not crown him. There was no ceremony, no cheering crowds. Power settled quietly. Revan did not sit upon a throne of gold. He stood at the center of movement, where fleets turned, where orders became roots, where hesitation disappeared. The war had changed shape. Battles still burned, but resistance broke sooner. Systems aligned themselves around certainty. That certainty had a face, and sometimes a mask. Revan did not rule through spectacle. He ruled through structure. Supply lines stabilized. Commands simplified. Chaos lost its voice. Worlds obeyed not because they loved him, but because outcomes improved. Piracy declined. Border wars froze in place. Trade resumed under watchful fleets. Fear existed, but it was controlled, directed, predictable. Shall the galaxy learned what to expect. That expectation mattered. As Dark Lord, Revan limited excess. He discouraged cruelty. He punished waste. Violence without purpose was removed from command. not out of mercy, but efficiency. Malak struggled with this restraint. Others embraced it. The empire that formed around Revan was not built on indulgence but discipline. The Sith of old had burned brightly. They consumed themselves. Revan studied those failures. Power, uncontained, collapses. Order endures. He believed this absolutely. Councils were replaced with hierarchies. Decisions moved downward cleanly. No debate, no delay. The galaxy responded. Some worlds resisted. They were contained, not annihilated. Occupation replaced devastation. Revan measured compliance in stability, not submission. And that distinction mattered to him. The force around him felt aligned, not roaring, focused. Darkness did not surge. It organized. Revan interpreted this as confirmation. If the force resisted him, he would stop. It did not. That silence felt like approval. He wore the title of Dark Lord without ceremony. Titles were tools, nothing more. He did not seek worship. He sought silence where screaming once lived. The Empire functioned. That was enough. Jedi were hunted, but not exterminated. Revan believed extinction created martyrs. Containment ended movements. He wanted survival, not revenge. Each policy reflected that aim. Each command narrowed chaos. The galaxy feared him because fear was simpler than understanding. But beneath the fear was relief. War had an end now. Borders held, losses slowed. So Revan told himself this proved righteousness. A tyrant delights in control. Revan tolerated it. That difference mattered to him. He did not feel joy ruling. He felt burden. Burden justified authority. The throne he built was not a seat. It was a system that answered questions before they formed. And as long as it worked, Revan believed, the galaxy would endure. He did not imagine himself immortal. He imagined continuity. If he fell, the system would remain. If he lived, the system would adapt. Individuals were fragile. Structures survived. This belief comforted him during long nights of calculation. He reviewed projections, not faces. Probabilities, not names. Distance preserved function. Some called him monster. Others called him savior. Revan acted neither. Labels distracted from results. Their results were all that mattered. Each quiet success pushed the memory of the Jedi further away. Not erased, deferred. He believed reconciliation possible once chaos was gone. Peace required obedience first. That was the logic he carried without anger. And because it felt calm, because it felt necessary, he did not see the throne rising higher. He only saw the galaxy finally holding still. Stillness can deceive. It hides tension beneath balance. Revan mistook silence for consent. He mistook endurance for peace. The emperor he became was built from reason, not cruelty. And reason, when unchecked, builds empires that believe they cannot be wrong. This certainty did not feel evil. It felt complete. That was its danger, quiet, methodical, and patient. So waiting for history to decide what Revan had already decided for everyone, without asking them whether they agreed or even understood the choice. The fear he inspired was measured. It did not erupt in panic. It settled into behavior. Worlds adjusted routines around the knowledge that defiance would be answered. Not emotionally, precisely. Revan did not rage. He did not threaten. Threats invited resistance. Certainty ended it. When systems rebelled, response came swiftly, decisively, enough to be remembered, never enough to be excessive. That balance defined his rule. The galaxy learned a pattern. Disobedience led to correction. Compliance led to stability. No speeches were broadcast. No declarations of dominance. Orders moved quietly through channels already prepared to receive them. Sir Revan believed fear worked best when it did not feel personal. Personal fear bred hatred. Hatred bred rebellion. Impersonal fear bred caution. Caution preserved order. Malak disagreed. He wanted spectacle, demonstration. Fear sharpened through destruction. Revan restrained him, not publicly, not harshly. He redirected operations, limited access, narrowed authority. This was not punishment, it was management. The Empire did not need passion. It needed predictability. Revan believed that deeply. The force around him reflected restraint. No storms of anger, no hunger for domination, only alignment toward outcome. That alignment unsettled observers. They could not sense madness. They could not sense excess. They sensed calm. Calm frightened them more. A tyrant can be reasoned with. A fanatic can be opposed. And a calm ruler who believes in necessity is harder to stop. Revan did not see this flaw. He saw efficiency. When Jedi cells resisted, they were isolated, captured, contained, not tortured, not paraded. Martyrs inspire movements. Prisoners end them. Revan understood psychology. Fear without rage left no fire to feed on. The Empire spread faster because of this. Worlds chose compliance voluntarily. They calculated risk. Revan encouraged that calculation. He wanted choices made logically, not emotionally. That belief shaped everything. Infrastructure replaced ideology. Supply ships mattered more than banners. People feared disruption more than rule. That suited him. At times, Revan sensed unease within himself. Not doubt. Recognition. He knew what he was building could not love him. Love destabilized systems. Fear maintained them. And that was acceptable. He did not seek legacy. He sought survival. The galaxy had nearly torn itself apart. Order had to come first. Freedom could come later. That promise lived only in his mind. He believed it sincerely. Because he felt no pleasure in fear, he believed fear was not corrupting him. He believed corruption required indulgence. He indulged in nothing. No excess, no cruelty, no personal vendettas. Only outcome. That belief strengthened daily. Every successful suppression reinforced it. The galaxy quieted. And quiet felt like healing. But healing without consent is only silence enforced. Revan did not frame it that way. He framed it as recovery. The Emperor did not roar. He waited. He observed. And when correction came, it came without emotion. Fear without rage. Order without mercy. Peace without voice. And this was the empire Revan believed the galaxy needed. And because it worked, because the Force did not scream, because chaos receded, he never asked what kind of fear would be required to keep it standing. Revan ruled as if disaster were always one step away, because it was. He remembered the galaxy before order, before structure held, before hesitation ended wars late instead of early. Ruin had a pattern: delay, division, debate without end. He built his rule to erase those conditions. Systems were reorganized for response speed. Command chains shortened. Autonomy reduced. Local leaders complained quietly. They still complied. Compliance mattered more than approval. Revan believed approval faded faster than stability. The Empire did not reward loyalty with praise. It rewarded it with continuity. Trade lanes stayed open. Her raids stopped. Borders hardened. The galaxy functioned. That function became proof. When advisors warned him of resentment growing beneath calm, Revan listened. Then he calculated. Resentment without power could not threaten survival. Chaos with freedom could. He chose the lesser danger. Always. That choice defined his rule. The force around him felt steady. No surges, no collapse. He took that as confirmation. The Jedi had believed the force guided morality. Revan believed it reflected consequence. If consequence improved, alignment followed. That logic seemed unbreakable. He did not abolish cultures, he standardized them. Differences remained, but conflict narrowed. Local disputes were absorbed by larger authority. Revan believed this reduced suffering overall. One order replacing many. That belief shaped law, and justice became uniform, predictable. Mercy became situational. Mercy slowed systems. Revan permitted it rarely. When granted, it reinforced authority more than cruelty ever could. People remembered restraint. They also remembered certainty. The Empire did not improvise. That frightened its enemies. Revan knew ruin often arrived through uncertainty. He removed it wherever possible. In private moments, he considered the cost, not of power, of rigidity. A system too ordered resists change. Change can be necessary. He told himself adaptation was possible as long as he remained present, as long as judgment stayed centralized. That belief anchored him. He did not imagine a future without himself, not out of arrogance, out of responsibility. Someone had to hold the center. The galaxy had proven that repeatedly. Malak argued for expansion, she for final dominance. Revan restrained him again. Ruin came from overreach. Survival required patience. That patience separated Revan from Sith of legend. They burned fast. He endured. Endurance felt like virtue. He believed the galaxy would thank him later. When peace matured, when fear eased, when obedience no longer required enforcement. That future justified everything now. Revan believed he was preventing collapse, not ruling for its own sake. The Empire was scaffolding, temporary, necessary. That belief kept doubt distant. It allowed him to sleep. The man behind the mask still existed, but he was quieter now. He watched. He trusted systems more than instincts. Instincts had once led to chaos. Systems ended it. That logic felt complete. And because ruin did not come, because the galaxy held, Revan never questioned whether preventing collapse might one day require destroying the very freedom he believed he was preserving. He never called himself savior. That was the irony. Revan believed saviors acted for glory. He acted for necessity. That distinction mattered to him. Every decision followed the same logic. If control reduced suffering, then control was mercy. If fear prevented chaos, then fear was protection. The galaxy survived under his rule. That survival became evidence. Revan pointed to functioning systems, to quiet borders, to wars that ended before they spread. He told himself this was proof that the Jedi had failed because they hesitated, proof that Sith indulgence had failed because it consumed itself. Revan believed he had found the narrow path between. Not light, not dark, order. And that belief shaped his identity completely. He no longer asked whether he should rule. He asked only how best to rule. The Force remained calm around him. That calm deceived him. He mistook absence of resistance for agreement. The Force does not argue. It endures. Revan believed endurance meant alignment. He believed the galaxy feared him only because it did not yet understand him. Understanding would come later, after stability, after obedience became habit, after fear faded into routine. That future lived vividly in his mind, a galaxy unified, strong, prepared for threats beyond imagination. Revan believed he was holding the line so others would never have to. That belief softened the weight of command. It allowed him to justify isolation. A savior must stand apart. He accepted loneliness as cost. And what he did not accept was dissent. Dissent endangered cohesion. Cohesion preserved survival. The logic was seamless. And because it was seamless, it was dangerous. Revan no longer measured lives individually. He measured trajectories, long-term survival over immediate freedom. That trade felt reasonable, necessary. He believed history would vindicate him. History always praises stability once chaos is forgotten. Revan trusted that. The paradox lived quietly inside him. He ruled to prevent ruin, yet his rule ensured no alternative could exist. He saved the galaxy by denying it choice. He protected life by reducing it to variables. These contradictions did not trouble him. They felt resolved. Resolution silences doubt. That silence replaced conscience. Revan did not feel cruel. He felt tired. Tired of holding everything together. Tired of being the only one willing to decide. That exhaustion deepened his conviction. If he stepped aside, everything would collapse again. The galaxy depended on him. That belief completed the transformation, not into a monster, into a necessity. Necessities do not apologize. They endure until replaced. Revan did not imagine replacement. He imagined continuity. The Empire as legacy, the system as shield, the shield as salvation. And because he believed this sincerely, because he felt no joy in power, because he acted without rage, he never saw the truth clearly. That a savior who cannot let go becomes the very ruin he believes he is preventing. The paradox was complete. Revan ruled not to dominate, but to save. And in that belief, quiet and absolute, the galaxy lost the last chance to choose its own path. Power does not tolerate doubt. It demands demonstration. Malak understood this long before he acted. He watched the Empire stabilize, watched Revan rule with calm authority, watched obedience become habit, and he felt himself shrinking within that order. Not weaker, smaller. Revan no longer needed him. That truth cut deeper than anger. The Forge answered Revan alone. Command flowed through Revan alone. Malak was still feared, still respected, but no longer essential. Power without necessity feels like exile. Malak believed this deeply. He had followed Revan into war, into darkness, into empire. And now he stood beside a ruler who no longer looked sideways. Revan's certainty had become complete. That completeness left no room for equals. Malak began to see the pattern clearly. Empires do not share thrones. They test them. The Sith had always understood this. Strength proved itself through survival, not loyalty. Malak believed Revan had forgotten that truth, or worse, believed himself above it. That belief was intolerable. The opportunity came quietly. A campaign beyond stable hyperspace lanes. A strategic inspection. A moment where fleets drifted far from witnesses. The void is honest. It hides nothing. Malak prepared carefully, not with rage, with resolve. He told himself this was necessity. If Revan could be challenged and survive, he deserved to rule. If he could not, then the Empire needed stronger hands. This was not betrayal. It was correction. The logic comforted him. He arranged the meeting personally. Revan arrived without suspicion. That mattered. Trust still existed. And that trust was Malak's final weapon. They spoke briefly, not of doubt, not of conflict, only of next steps. Revan did not sense danger. He sensed alignment. That was the mistake. When Malak gave the order, there was no hesitation. Turbo lasers fired, not wildly, precisely. The bridge shook. Alarms flared and died instantly. Revan turned toward the viewport as energy tore through hull plating. The Force reacted sharply, not in warning, in shock. Malak watched without expression. This was proof. Proof demanded by power. Another blast struck. The command deck fractured. Atmosphere rushed into nothing. Revan reached outward instinctively, not to attack, but to understand. Understanding came too late. Malak did not shout, did not gloat. He simply observed. The body was torn from the deck and pulled into darkness. Silence followed. Cold. Complete. No scream. No final words. Just absence. Malak stared into the void where Revan had been. The Empire held its breath. The galaxy would soon believe this was the end, that power had proven itself, that the throne had chosen a new master. Malak believed this too, because power demands proof, and he believed he had provided it. Malak did not celebrate. There was no triumph in the moment after, only stillness, the kind that settles when something irreversible has occurred. He stood alone on the bridge, watching debris scatter into endless dark. Revan was gone. That fact felt unreal, even as it hardened into certainty. The Empire waited. Messages queued across command channels, requests for confirmation, for direction. Malak delayed his response, not from doubt, from necessity. So a ruler must speak only when the moment belongs to him. He replayed the act in his mind, the timing, the precision. There had been no error. That mattered. If power judged him now, it would judge him worthy. Malak told himself this again and again. Revan had become complacent, too careful, too restrained. The Empire needed strength, not moderation. That belief steadied him. He issued the order at last. "The Dark Lord has fallen," he said. "The Empire remains." Those words traveled fast. Fear spread faster. Some commanders resisted instinctively. Others complied immediately. Malak anticipated this. He moved quickly to secure loyalty. Positions were reassigned. Access codes revoked. The structure Revan built was efficient even in betrayal. Malak stepped into it easily. That ease convinced him this was destiny. He addressed the fleet, and not with compassion, with certainty. "Revan is dead," he declared. "The threat remains. I will finish what he began." Silence followed. Then, obedience. Fear settled into its familiar place. Malak felt the shift inside himself. Authority was no longer borrowed. It was absolute. That absoluteness filled the space Revan once occupied. He felt taller, not physically, internally. The doubt that had shadowed him during Revan's reign finally loosened its grip. He believed he had proven something essential. That strength, not balance, was the true foundation of rule. The Sith had always known this. The Jedi had always feared it. Malak embraced it fully. He ordered pursuit of remaining resistance, ordered harsher compliance. Fear would now be clear, not measured. The Empire would not hesitate again. Revan's restraint had slowed domination, so Malak would correct that. Still, in the quiet moments between orders, something stirred. Not regret, memory. He remembered following Revan into battle, standing beside him in ruin. Those memories felt distant now, like another life. Brotherhood belonged to the weak. Only mastery endured. Malak repeated that thought until it settled. The galaxy needed certainty. Certainty required dominance. If Revan could not see that, then Revan had been unfit to rule. That conclusion hardened quickly. Malak did not imagine consequences beyond victory. The throne was his now. The void had decided. Revan's body was gone. No proof remained. Only assumption. And assumption is enough when fear supports it. Malak turned away from the viewport. The Empire awaited instruction. The future awaited command. He gave it willingly, and unaware that power had not finished demanding proof. Unaware that the void does not always keep what it takes. The void did not remain silent. It answered violence with motion. Energy rippled through the wreckage, not as explosion, but as disturbance. Revan did not die instantly. The force wrapped around him as the ship tore apart. Instinct guided him where thought could not. He did not reach for Malak. He did not reach for power. He reached for survival. Cold consumed him first, then pressure. Stars stretched and blurred as debris scattered. The vacuum clawed at consciousness, pulling breath, pulling sound, pulling certainty. Revan's body spun through darkness, armor absorbing fragments. The force absorbing impact. Pain registered distantly, not sharply, like an echo delayed. He focused inward. And control had always been his refuge. He slowed his thoughts, regulated his heartbeat. The force responded immediately. It did not save him. It sustained him. There is a difference. Sustainment does not promise safety. It only postpones ending. Revan drifted among wreckage, lights fading behind him. The Empire moving on without pause. He felt Malak's presence recede, not in triumph, in assumption. Assumption is dangerous. The Force does not respect it. Revan clung to awareness as darkness pressed harder. He felt the cold settle deeper, threatening stillness. He remembered silence from childhood, the temple halls, the absence that shaped him. This felt similar, familiar. That familiarity anchored him. He did not fight the void. He adapted to it. The Force tightened around his form, not shielding completely, but slowing loss. Her time distorted. Moments stretched, thoughts blurred. He could not tell how long he drifted, only that the galaxy continued without him. Revan's consciousness wavered. Images surfaced unbidden. Malak's face. The forge. The Empire standing without question. There was no anger, only recognition. This was the cost of certainty. He had built a system that could remove him without collapse. That realization cut deeper than the physical damage. The Force carried him onward, towards something unseen. Not a destination, an interruption. Gravity returned suddenly, not gently. A massive pull seized him, tearing him from drift and dragging him toward metal and shadow. The impact shattered remaining awareness. Darkness closed fully now. Revan did not resist it. He had learned long ago that resistance wasted strength. The void had taken him, but it had not finished. Fire still burned in the darkness. Not blaster fire, consequence. The galaxy believed the Dark Lord was dead. The Empire adjusted. Malak ruled. But the Force does not move in straight lines. Revan's story did not end in vacuum. It paused, suspended between death and continuation, between failure and return. The void had claimed his body. It had not claimed his will. And that distinction would soon matter more than anyone realized. Death did not claim him. It misplaced him. Revan woke to weight, to pressure, to darkness that was not empty. Metal surrounded him, cold, ancient. Systems hummed faintly, not in welcome, but in function. He could not move at first. His body remembered pain before his mind did. Limbs responded slowly. Breath returned in shallow rhythm. The force flowed weakly here, not absent, but constrained. That told him where he was not. This was not the void. He reached outward carefully. The galaxy felt distant, muted by layers of interference. He was alive. That truth arrived without relief. Survival did not feel like victory. It felt like postponement. Memory returned in fragments. Malak's order, the blast, the silence. Betrayal settled calmly. Revan did not rage. Rage wasted energy. He assessed instead. His empire believed him dead. His apprentice ruled. The system he built had continued without pause. That hurt more than the betrayal itself. He had succeeded too well. Revan pushed himself upright. The chamber responded with distant light. Old technology adjusted. Ancient mechanisms awakened. This place had been waiting, not for him specifically, for someone like him. He recognized the design immediately. Rakatan, predating the Republic, predating the Sith he knew. A prison, a sanctuary, both. The irony did not escape him. He had survived the Forge, only to be caught by another remnant of forgotten empires. The force here felt thin, scraped raw by ancient purpose. It did not comfort him, it challenged him. Revan centered himself slowly. Control returned piece by piece. Pain dulled into awareness. He was weakened. That mattered. Weakness demanded patience. As he moved through the facility, systems reacted cautiously. They did not recognize authority. That also mattered. He was no longer emperor here, no Dark Lord, just a survivor. That reduction felt necessary. Revan understood something important then. The galaxy believed his story had ended. That belief would shape what came next. Malak would rule unchecked. The empire would change. The consequences would ripple outward. Revan did not see this as failure. He saw it as interruption. History rarely ends cleanly. It pauses, waits. Revan did not plan revenge. Not yet. He planned recovery, understanding. The betrayal had revealed something he had ignored for too long. Power invites challenge. Systems invite replacement. Control invites proof. He had built an empire that demanded his death to continue evolving. That realization settled heavily. The man behind the mask had been removed. What remained would have to change. Revan closed his eyes briefly. The Force answered faintly. Enough. He was not finished. The void had released him for a reason. Not mercy. Possibility. The galaxy would learn soon enough that death had not taken him. It had only delayed the reckoning. And when Revan returned, it would not be as emperor or savior or symbol. It would be as consequence. They did not ask him. They never would have. Choice complicates necessity. Revan's body was recovered quietly, pulled from ruin before the void could finish its work. Unconscious, broken, alive. The Jedi Council did not see a man. They saw a weapon that had nearly ended the galaxy, and an opportunity that might yet save it. The decision was made without ceremony. There was no debate long enough to be remembered. Revan's mind was entered carefully, not with anger, with fear. Fear of what he knew, fear of what he had become. Memories were not erased violently. They were unthreaded, one by one. Names dissolved, faces blurred, choices lost their anchors. The Force was used like a surgeon's blade, precise, cold. What remained was structure. Instincts survived where memories failed. Our reflex replaced recollection. Revan's identity collapsed inward, not into emptiness, but into silence. He dreamed during the process, not of power, of motion, fleets moving without purpose, decisions waiting for voice. The dreams ended abruptly when the last anchor was cut. Revan awoke without history. The temple felt familiar in ways he could not explain. Stone halls, still air. The Force moved here gently, like something trying not to disturb him. He did not know his name. That absence felt wrong, not frightening, incomplete. The Jedi gave him one, a new name, a new past, a story designed to fit the shape of a man they no longer trusted. They told him he was once Sith. They did not tell him how far he had gone. Truth can break what it cannot repair. They gave him a purpose instead. Serve the light, correct the damage, fight the remnants of the dark. Revan accepted this calmly. Acceptance came easily. It always had. The Force flowed cleanly through him, as if relieved to be used without ambition. The Jedi watched closely. They saw discipline, focus. They did not see memory trying to resurface. Fragments stirred beneath the surface, not images, patterns. He moved like a commander, observed like a strategist. He asked questions that felt older than his new life. The council answered carefully. They shaped his training to avoid awakening what slept. They believed memory was the danger. They were wrong. Memory is loud, instinct is quiet. Instinct survives erasure. Revan felt responsibility without knowing its source. When others hesitated, he stepped forward. When plans lacked structure, he reorganized them instinctively. The Jedi saw promise. They told themselves this was redemption. A fallen Sith rebuilt as a servant of balance. They did not consider what happens when control is removed, but the need to control remains. Revan felt incomplete but not lost. Something inside him still believed the galaxy needed guidance. He could not explain why. He did not need to. The Force did not correct him. It moved with him. That movement reassured the council. They believed the past was gone. That belief comforted them. Revan stood at the beginning of a life chosen for him. His mind cleared, his will intact. They had taken his darkness. They had not taken his certainty. And certainty, when reborn without memory, does not weaken. It waits. The life they gave him was orderly, measured, safe. Revan was told where he came from, what he had been, and what he must now become. The story was simple. He had fallen. He had been stopped. He had been spared. Now he would serve. The Jedi framed this as mercy. Mercy requires consent. This required obedience. Revan accepted the structure without resistance. Resistance implies memory. He had none. He trained as instructed, studied as directed, meditated when told. The Jedi watched constantly, not openly, quietly. Every movement was evaluated, every reaction noted. They looked for cracks. They did not find any. Revan learned quickly, too quickly. He absorbed teachings without strain, adapted techniques without struggle. The Force bent easily around him. as if relieved to be understood again. The Jedi told themselves this was balance returning. They told themselves they were doing the right thing. They placed him among others to observe behavior. Yet he led without being asked, not by command, by presence. Others deferred instinctively. Revan noticed this. He did not encourage it. He did not stop it either. Leadership felt natural, like breathing. The council adjusted his path. They paired him with missions designed to test restraint, negotiations, reconnaissance, containment. Revan succeeded consistently. He ended conflicts quietly, resolved tension before it ignited. The galaxy responded. Worlds stabilized around him. The Jedi began to trust the version they had created. They reinforced the narrative. You are not who you were, they said. You are who you choose to be now. Revan accepted this framing. Choice was comforting. He did not know how much had already been decided. They did not tell him about Malak. They did not tell him about the empire that still burned, and truth was rationed carefully. The Jedi believed knowledge would awaken identity. They were right. They were wrong about timing. Revan felt something missing during moments of stillness, not memory, context. He sensed consequences unfolding elsewhere, actions taken without his awareness. This unsettled him. The Jedi interpreted it as guilt. They encouraged reflection. Revan reflected deeply. He asked questions that felt heavier than his assigned history. Why do systems collapse? Why does power concentrate? Why does fear spread faster than hope? The Jedi answered with doctrine, balance, let go, trust the Force. The answers felt incomplete, not false, incomplete. Revan began to feel tension between teaching and outcome. The Force moved with him, but it did not resolve that tension. It observed. He sensed that observation. Not judgment, expectation. The life chosen for him fit his shape too well. That disturbed him subtly. If he was truly new, why did this path feel familiar? Why did command feel natural and submission feel temporary? He did not voice these thoughts. They felt dangerous. Instead, he acted perfectly. The Jedi rewarded this with trust. They began to rely on him. Reliance creates responsibility. Responsibility awakens instinct. Revan did not remember his past, but his past recognized the present. The life chosen for him was not foreign. It was an echo. And echoes, given enough time, find their source. Instinct did not announce itself. It surfaced quietly. Revan felt it in moments of choice, when paths split and hesitation crept in. He always chose quickly, not rashly, decisively. The choice felt obvious to him, and even when others debated, he did not know why. Training explained technique, not certainty. During missions, he positioned teams instinctively, placing strength where pressure would come, withdrawing before traps closed. Success followed. The Jedi praised discipline. They mistook instinct for learning. Revan felt patterns beneath events, supply lines, morale, fear. He sensed where resistance would harden before it did. This awareness was not vision. It was memory without images. The Force moved with him, not guiding, but aligning. He noticed how conflict responded to structure. When order was imposed, violence faded. When chaos lingered, suffering spread. These observations disturbed him. They felt earned. In meditation, his thoughts drifted toward systems, toward balance achieved through design. The Jedi encouraged emptiness. Let go, they said. Revan tried. Emptiness did not come. Organization did. He arranged thoughts as he arranged plans, seeking efficiency over stillness. The Force did not resist this. It responded. That response frightened some masters. They sensed familiarity. Revan sensed recognition. He began to anticipate enemy movements without briefing. He adjusted plans mid-action, without consultation. Results improved. Others followed. Leadership formed around him again, softly, without title. He felt responsible for outcomes he was not assigned. When missions failed elsewhere, he felt the weight personally. This surprised him. Responsibility usually follows memory. He had none. Yet the feeling persisted. He began to dream again, not of faces, of outcomes. Worlds stabilizing, wars ending quickly, a silence after order. The dreams carried no emotion, only resolution. The Jedi interpreted this as healing. They encouraged him. They did not ask what kind of healing removes choice. Revan sensed danger approaching, not as threat, but as inevitability. The galaxy was moving toward conflict again. He could feel it. He requested deployment to the front. The council agreed. They trusted his calm. On the battlefield, his instincts sharpened. He saw solutions others missed. He ended fights before they escalated. He contained threats rather than destroying them. This restraint felt natural. It felt necessary. Yet beneath restraint, a harder truth waited. If restraint failed, force must replace it. He did not desire that. He accepted it. Acceptance is quieter than desire. Yet the Force responded to acceptance more readily than to passion. Revan noticed this. The light did not feel fragile. It felt adaptable. Instinct guided him to act before permission, to fix before debate. He knew this conflicted with doctrine. Doctrine lagged behind reality. The Jedi had taught him to listen. He listened to consequence instead. These instincts would not fade. They did not need memory. They were embedded, etched by experience too deep to erase. Revan did not know who he had been, but whoever that man was, he had learned one lesson completely. The galaxy does not wait for certainty to arrive. It moves, and someone must move with it. That impulse settled deeper each day, not louder, deeper. He did not argue with it. He planned around it. The council sensed momentum building, and they mistook it for confidence restored. Revan felt something else, a pull toward unfinished work. The Force did not forbid it, it accommodated it. Every success reinforced the same truth. Order reduced pain. Delay multiplied it. These instincts were not dark. They were practical. And practicality, once learned, rarely forgets itself. Even when names, faces, and histories are stripped away, they remain beneath training and teaching, waiting, patient. When called upon, they rise without memory, without permission, and without apology, ready to shape events again, because shaping events is what they were made to do, long before choice ever returned. Responsibility returned before identity. It pressed into Revan during moments of quiet, when orders were complete and silence filled the space between thoughts. And he felt accountable for outcomes he could not remember creating. When reports arrived of instability, his attention sharpened. He felt the pull immediately. Not curiosity, obligation. The Jedi framed missions as service. Revan experienced them as correction. Something was wrong in the galaxy. He could feel it, not as vision, but as imbalance in motion. Systems drifting, conflicts forming patterns. He did not know why these things mattered to him. They simply did. Responsibility settled without explanation. The council noticed his seriousness deepen. They believed it was maturity. They praised his composure, his willingness to act without complaint. Revan did not seek praise. Praise distracted from outcome. He began carrying the weight of decisions long after missions ended. Others rested. He reviewed. Others celebrated. He recalculated. This behavior concerned some masters. They spoke privately. He is too focused, they said, too invested. But they did not intervene. Results continued to improve. Worlds stabilized around his presence. That effect felt familiar to him, as if he had done this before. Responsibility does not require memory. It requires recognition of consequence. Revan recognized consequence everywhere. He could not walk away from unfinished problems. When conflicts ended, he stayed until structures held. He rebuilt command chains, secured supply routes. Others moved on. Revan remained. The Force flowed steadily during these moments, not urging, allowing. That allowance reinforced his belief that he was acting correctly. The Jedi taught surrender to the Force. Revan practiced alignment with outcome. The difference was subtle, and it went unnoticed. He did not question authority. He exceeded it, quietly. When orders lacked clarity, he refined them. When leadership faltered, he filled the space. Not from ambition, from necessity. The galaxy felt fragile, too fragile for hesitation. This belief grew stronger each day. He no longer wondered who he had been. That question felt irrelevant. Who he was becoming felt urgent. The council eventually trusted him with greater autonomy. They believed he had been healed. They believed the past no longer mattered. They did not realize they were returning responsibility to a man shaped by it long before memory was removed. Revan sensed a convergence approaching, not of battle, of truth. He did not know what truth meant, only that something waited ahead. The Force felt expectant, not warning, preparing. Responsibility without memory does not dissolve. It intensifies. Freed from regret, from guilt, from personal history, it becomes absolute. Revan believed he was serving the light. He did not question that belief. He also believed the galaxy required guidance. That belief felt older, deeper. He could not explain it. He did not need to. Explanation slows action. Action was needed. As the Jedi prepared for confrontation with the remnants of the Sith, Revan stood ready, not as penitent, not as redeemed, but as someone who could not look away from responsibility, even when he no longer knew why it belonged to him. The light had rewritten his mind. It had not rewritten his purpose. Purpose does not live in memory. It lives in motion. And Revan was already moving again, toward consequences still unfolding, and toward truths waiting to collide, toward a future that would soon demand he remember who he had been and decide who he would become when memory finally returned. The war did not announce its return. It never does. Revan felt it before he understood it, a pressure returning to places he had believed quiet. Not memory, awareness. The galaxy moved as it always had. Trade resumed. Borders held. Conflicts appeared manageable. That surface calm meant nothing to him. He had seen calm before. It was always temporary. Revan stood apart now, no longer defined by titles or certainty. Jedi called him ally. Some called him redeemed. Revan accepted neither. Labels distracted from vigilance. The Sith threat had not vanished. It had retreated. Retreat is not defeat. He knew this instinctively, as he had always known it. The Force carried echoes from beyond known space, faint disturbances that felt unfinished. Not cries, signals, warnings without language. Revan listened where others rested. The Jedi believed the war had ended. Revan believed it had only changed form. He spoke to the council carefully, not with accusation, but with concern. They listened politely. Politely is not the same as hearing. They believed balance had been restored. Revan believed balance required maintenance. Left alone, power grows in silence. He volunteered for missions others avoided, long patrols into regions no one wished to chart again. There were no victories here, only prevention. Revan did not chase glory. He chased absence. Absence of rising empires. Absence of gathering fleets. Absence of voices growing bold in darkness. This work left no proof. That suited him. When nothing happened, it meant he had succeeded. He operated beyond recognition, moving through conflicts before they formed, breaking alliances before they hardened. The galaxy never noticed. That was the point. The Jedi worried about him. They saw isolation, exhaustion. They urged rest. Revan declined. Rest is for those who believe danger has passed. He no longer believed that. Memory returned slowly over time, not as clarity, but as weight. Fragments aligned with instinct, not emotion. He remembered why vigilance mattered. Not faces, consequences. He remembered worlds burning because action came too late. That memory hurt less than knowing it could happen again. Revan accepted the pain as reminder. Pain keeps watch when comfort sleeps. Years passed quietly. His presence faded from conversation. Heroes rose and fell elsewhere. Revan remained where no one looked. He followed traces of Sith ideology, not temples or cults, but patterns, where order twisted into domination, where fear disguised itself as stability. These were seeds. He uprooted them carefully, never publicly. Public action creates reaction. He preferred silence. The Force felt heavy during these years, not oppressive, burdened, as if the galaxy itself was holding breath. Revan felt responsible for that breath. If he relaxed, the exhale would become fire. His body began to fail slowly, not dramatically. Joints stiffened. Recovery slowed. The will did not weaken. That imbalance troubled him. A failing body limits reach. Revan adapted. He planned further ahead, moved fewer pieces himself. He became strategist again, not commander. Distance replaced presence. This frustrated him deeply. He had trusted presence more than plans. Now he relied on others who did not see what he saw. And that fear returned often. Fear of absence, not death. Absence creates opportunity for darkness. The Jedi assured him others would carry the watch. Revan did not doubt their sincerity. He doubted continuity. Few understand wars that do not end. Fewer accept the cost of watching forever. Revan accepted it without praise. This was his vigil, not penance. Duty. He did not believe himself unique. He believed himself necessary. That belief carried him through pain, through isolation, through fading relevance. When his strength finally waned significantly, he did not resist the change. Resistance wastes energy. He restructured his role again, moving deeper into obscurity, closer to where the threat truly waited. Beyond known space, beyond maps and councils. He followed the pull quietly. This was not retreat. It was continuation. Yet the war had never ended. It had only narrowed to those willing to keep fighting without witnesses. Revan was willing. He always had been. This was not heroism. It was recognition. The galaxy forgets quickly. Darkness does not. Someone had to remember. Someone had to stay awake when others slept in peace. earned by vigilance they would never see. Revan carried that wakefulness into his final years, not seeking victory, only delay. Delay gives life room to grow. That was enough for him. He did not expect gratitude. He expected endurance. The war did not end. It narrowed to one man, walking into shadow again, not to conquer, not to rule, but to stand between the galaxy and what waited patiently for it to look away. Memory returned in pieces, never as comfort. Revan did not regain his past as a story. He regained it as pressure, and moments surfaced without order, battles without faces, decisions without context. They arrived during motion, never during rest. He would pause mid-step, a sense of inevitability tightening, then continue as if nothing had happened. The Jedi noticed the change. They saw distance deepen. Revan spoke less of the future and more of preparation. Preparation for what, they could not say. He could not either. The Force guided him now without explanation. Not like a voice, like gravity. He moved toward threats before they named themselves. Sometimes he arrived too early, sometimes too late. Both outcomes haunted him. Fighting beyond memory meant fighting without certainty. He could not rely on history. He relied on pattern. Sith ideology resurfaced not as armies, but as ideas, control disguised as protection, order enforced as salvation. Revan recognized these shapes instantly. Recognition did not require recall. He dismantled these movements quietly, breaking leadership chains, redirecting resources, removing keystones. The structure collapsed. No martyr remained. No legend formed. The galaxy continued without noticing. This anonymity weighed on him, not because he desired recognition, because anonymity means repetition. Lessons unlearned are relearned through suffering. Revan feared that cycle. He tried to warn others, not directly. Warnings sound like prophecy. Prophecy invites disbelief. Instead, he embedded caution into training, into doctrine, into contingency plans. He spoke of vigilance as habit, not emergency. Most listened politely. Few internalized it. So memory sharpened further when he encountered remnants of his own past. Ruins he had once ordered built. Weapons he had once authorized. They recognized him even when he did not recognize himself. The Force reacted strongly in these places, not with anger, with alignment. That alignment frightened him. It meant continuity existed between who he had been and who he was becoming. He had hoped the past would feel foreign. It did not. It felt instructional. Revan destroyed what needed destroying. He preserved what could still be useful. That choice troubled the Jedi deeply. Why not erase all traces? They asked. Because erasure creates ignorance, he replied. Ignorance creates repetition. That answer unsettled them. They sensed balance, but not surrender. Revan did not surrender easily. He surrendered only to consequence. A fighting beyond memory meant fighting without justification. He could not say why he felt responsible, only that he did. The Force did not correct him. It supported him. That support reinforced belief. Belief hardened into duty. Duty outlives memory. Years blurred. Allies aged. Orders shifted. Galactic focus moved elsewhere. Revan remained where the threat lingered, watching signs others ignored. He felt the Sith beyond death, not as spirits, as influence, as ideology passed hand to hand, teacher to student. Without name or lineage, he fought that transmission relentlessly. He broke chains of succession, not with violence, with interruption. Remove the teacher, the lesson dies. Remove the context, the belief weakens. This work required patience bordering on obsession. Revan accepted that cost. Yet he could not remember a life without this responsibility. Even before memory returned, he had carried it. Now memory sharpened the weight. He remembered faces only when they were gone. Friends lost to time, enemies lost to history. He did not dwell on them. Dwelling slows response. The body weakened further. Healing took longer. Pain lingered. The will compensated. That imbalance grew dangerous. The force responded to will, not muscle. Revan learned to fight differently, less direct. He manipulated circumstance rather than blades. Wars ended without battles. Threats dissolved before ignition. This efficiency cost him connection. Others saw him as distant, unreachable. That isolation deepened. Isolation clarifies purpose. It also erodes humanity. Revan knew this. He accepted it anyway. Better one man eroded than a galaxy burned. And memory finally aligned fully near the end. Not as revelation, as confirmation. He remembered the Star Forge, the Empire, the throne. He remembered Malak's betrayal without anger. Anger wastes energy. The memory did not change his path, it explained it. He had always moved toward prevention. Even as Sith, even as Emperor, even as weapon. The difference now was humility. He no longer believed he could solve everything. He believed he could delay enough for others to survive. That belief was smaller. It was also wiser. Fighting beyond memory had stripped illusion. No saviors, no final victories. Only vigilance passed forward. Revan prepared others carefully, not as successors, but as sentinels. He did not expect them to understand fully. Understanding is rare. Awareness is enough. When he finally felt the end approach, and he did not resist it. Resistance wastes strength. He conserved it for one final purpose, to hold the line a little longer, until the galaxy was ready to carry the watch without him. Whether it ever would was uncertain. But uncertainty no longer frightened him. He had learned that fighting beyond memory means fighting without guarantee. You fight because stopping creates space for darkness. And space, left unattended, always fills. Revan would not allow that. Not yet. The body failed slowly, without drama. Revan noticed it first in recovery time. Wounds closed, but not completely. Strength returned, but unevenly. The force compensated, as it always had. That compensation came at a price. Where once body and will moved together, now the will dragged the body forward. That imbalance worried him. And a will unchecked by limitation becomes reckless. Revan adjusted. He shortened engagements, reduced exposure, delegated movement. But delegation introduced risk. Others did not see what he saw. They reacted to threats. He anticipated them. Anticipation is exhausting. It requires constant presence. The body resisted that demand. Pain became familiar, not sharp, persistent. A reminder of time pressing inward. Revan did not resent the pain. Pain marked reality. Reality prevented illusion. He had lived once believing control could outpace consequence. The failing body corrected that belief. Limits returned. Limits taught humility. The will remained strong, stronger than ever. It no longer chased solutions. It guarded thresholds. Revan chose where to stand carefully now. because standing anywhere else was no longer possible. So he positioned himself between the galaxy and what waited beyond it. That position narrowed his world. Stars blurred into function. Planets became checkpoints. People became messengers rather than companions. Isolation deepened. Isolation sharpened focus. The Jedi urged him to rest again. They spoke of legacy, of teaching, of release. Revan listened politely. He did not agree. Legacy distracts from vigilance. Teaching requires time. Time was what he no longer had. He continued his watch with reduced motion and increased precision. The Force responded. Where strength faltered, clarity increased. He sensed disturbances earlier, tracked them farther. Distance replaced speed. This adaptation cost him connection. Others felt his presence less. They mistook that absence for withdrawal. Revan remained engaged. He had simply moved deeper into the unseen currents that guided events. The Sith threat did not manifest as armies anymore. It manifested as belief that control could save, belief that fear could stabilize, belief that one mind should decide for many. Revan recognized these beliefs intimately. They mirrored his own past. That recognition sharpened his resolve. He targeted ideologies, not leaders. Leaders can be replaced. Belief persists. He disrupted transmission points. Archives burned quietly. Teachings fragmented. He did not erase everything. Erasure creates curiosity. He diluted. Dilution weakens conviction. This work demanded patience the body struggled to provide. Revan relied on the will to endure. The will did not complain. It pressed forward relentlessly. That relentlessness worried him again. An unchecked will had once made him emperor. He monitored himself carefully, pausing, reassessing, letting the Force respond instead of forcing it. This restraint slowed decline. It did not stop it. There were days when lifting a blade felt like lifting memory itself. Heavy, unwilling. Revan adapted again. He stopped relying on weapons. Presence mattered more. He influenced through positioning, through timing. Conflicts resolved without confrontation. That success reinforced his path. He did not need strength. He needed awareness. The will adjusted accordingly. It shed ambition completely. Only duty remained. Duty does not require comfort. It requires persistence. The body resisted persistence. Revan accepted the resistance as signal, not obstacle. The end approached, not as threat, as boundary. He felt it in the Force, and a narrowing of possibility. Choices reduced, paths closed. One path remained, to hold position, not advance, not retreat. Hold. That choice demanded everything left in him. He committed without hesitation. The will stabilized. The body followed as long as it could. Time lost meaning. Moments blurred into watchfulness. Sleep became optional. Meditation replaced rest. The Force sustained him briefly. Briefly mattered. He sensed movement beyond death, not of himself, but of what he opposed. The Sith legacy persisted stubbornly, not through lineage, through idea. Revan focused all remaining clarity there. He slowed its spread, not ended it. Slowing was enough. Enough buys time. Time allows life to adapt. The Jedi sensed the shift. They felt something holding. They did not know who. Revan did not correct them. Names no longer mattered. An identity no longer mattered. Only position. standing where collapse would begin if no one stood at all. The body finally protested loudly. Movement became painful. Breath shortened. The will did not falter. It narrowed further. No excess. No waste. Every thought had purpose. Revan accepted the imbalance fully now. The body was temporary. The will carried consequence forward. This acceptance marked the final transition, not into death, into endurance beyond flesh. The Force responded subtly. It did not preserve the body. It preserved intent. That distinction mattered. When the body finally failed, it did so quietly. No battle, no witness. Revan did not resist. Resistance wastes strength. He released the body with calm awareness. The will did not end. It transferred, not as spirit seeking vengeance, as presence holding line. And the Force absorbed that will carefully, like a river redirecting current. Revan became less than man, more than memory. He became persistence. The body had failed. The will remained. And where the will remained, the war could not end. Not yet. Legends are usually born from victory. Revan's was born from refusal. Refusal to rest. Refusal to forget. Refusal to believe the war had ever truly ended. When his body failed, the galaxy did not notice. There were no announcements, no funerals. History does not pause for quiet endings. Yet something remained. A pressure in the Force. A resistance against collapse. Those sensitive to it could not name the source. They only felt delay. Threats slowed. Dark movements fractured. Ambitions lost momentum. The Sith legacy weakened, not because it was destroyed, but because it could no longer grow freely. Revan had become the space where growth was denied. Not a ghost, not a god, a weight. The Jedi spoke of balance returning. They sensed stability without understanding the cost. Balance did not arrive naturally. It was held by will long after flesh released it. Revan's presence lingered in forgotten places, ancient corridors, uncharted systems, edges of thought where Sith philosophy tried to root itself again. Each time it did, resistance met it. Not confrontation, containment. Ideas withered when unchallenged long enough. Belief requires reinforcement. Revan denied it reinforcement. This was not heroism, it was maintenance. The galaxy remembers heroes because heroes appear briefly. Maintenance is invisible. That invisibility became his legend. Over centuries, stories shifted, and some said Revan died redeemed. Others claimed he fell again. A few whispered he never truly died at all. None were fully correct. Revan had stepped outside simple endings. The war followed him there. He did not win it. He prevented its return. That difference mattered. The Sith never vanished. They adapted. They waited. Revan waited longer. When new Sith rose, they found their paths blocked by misalignment. Teachings fragmented. Chains broke prematurely. The rule of two would emerge later, born from failure to sustain empires. That failure traced back, in part, to a resistance no Sith ever fully understood. They blamed weakness. They blamed betrayal. They blamed chance. They never blamed vigilance. The Jedi rebuilt in cycles, rising and falling with the galaxy's tides. Some masters felt watched during meditation, not judged, still observed, as if someone remained present, ensuring restraint did not become stagnation. They could not name it. They did not try. Names simplify what should remain complex. Revan's influence did not guide choices, it limited extremes. Light could not dominate absolutely. Dark could not expand unchecked. Both found resistance when they overreached. That resistance preserved space for life, space for growth, space for choice. Ironically, the man who once denied choice ended his existence preserving it. This was not redemption. Redemption implies forgiveness. Revan sought equilibrium. Equilibrium requires constant effort. The galaxy moved on. New wars came. New heroes rose. New empires burned. Through all of it, the long war continued beneath the surface, a war against inevitability, against the belief that power must always concentrate, against the idea that control is the only answer to fear. Revan had believed those things once. He spent the rest of existence ensuring no one could believe them without resistance. That became his final lesson. No philosophy survives without challenge. No order endures without maintenance. Peace is not an achievement, it is a task. Those who felt his presence most were not warriors. They were watchers, archivists, guardians, sentinels placed at thresholds. People who sensed danger early and acted quietly. They never knew why they did this. They only felt compelled. Revan's legend lived there, not in songs, in habits, in caution passed down without explanation, in the instinct to intervene early before disaster demanded heroics. This was his legacy, and a war carried forward without banners, without applause, without end. Revan did not become a myth because he won. He became one because he refused to stop, even when stopping would have been easier, even when stopping would have been praised, even when stopping would have allowed rest. He chose vigilance over peace, because peace unguarded becomes illusion. The Force absorbed that lesson deeply. It carried his intent forward without personality, without ego, just pressure, limitation, delay. The galaxy never thanked him. It never knew it should. That was acceptable. Revan had never fought for gratitude. He fought because someone had to. In the end, there was no final confrontation, no closure. The war did not end. It thinned, it slowed, and it was carried forward by countless hands who never knew why they felt compelled to stand where others walked past. Revan's name faded from accuracy, but his impact did not. That is how true legends persist, not as stories retold, as conditions maintained. The galaxy survived not because Revan was strong or wise or chosen. It survived because he stayed, long after staying made sense, long after staying was remembered, long after staying hurt. Revan did not become immortal. He became necessary for just long enough to teach the galaxy how to survive without him. That lesson remains unfinished, which is why the legend remains alive. Not in victory, in vigilance, in the quiet resistance that keeps history from repeating itself too cleanly. The war never ended. It was carried forward, passed on invisibly, so through instinct and restraint, through people who pause before power grows unchecked. That pause is Revan's final act. Still happening, still holding, still buying time. And as long as the galaxy hesitates before choosing domination over balance, order over life, control over consequence, Revan's war continues, unseen, unfinished, exactly as he intended.